Okay. Here's the site plan. Let's see if I can help to describe this. So this would be north is up. This is Valley Hills Boulevard here on the left. The tank is right here where the cursor is. If I zoom in, you'll get to see kind of where that sits. Now, so this would be the lease area right here. So the tower would be right here on the northwest corner. So this is a public hearing. Purpose is to solicit public input, Chairman. That's a summary. I'll turn it back to you.
Is there anybody here from Atlas who would like to speak to this?
Are they here? Oh, there we are.
Good evening. If you could just introduce yourself, that'd be great. Thank you.
My name is Sandra Layton. I'm from Atlas Tower.
Sorry, Sandra, what is your position there?
Oh, I'm the project manager for the site.
Very good. Thank you.
So, yeah, we've got an agreement with Heber City for a lease for the site. We've discussed several options and came to the conclusion of the tree being the concealing. The ability to receive and initiate phone calls, make emergency calls, and communicate via email, text messages, are service that people have come to expect. Cell towers are FCC regulated. Our facility will comply with all FCC standards. I'm happy to take email addresses at the end. I can send you what the FCC regulations and standards are, and you can also obtain some more information if needed. Happy to provide all the links. Why did we choose this location? The area is lacking coverage. The cell tower is consistent with the current utility use of the land there. So it fit. The carriers, they are engineers with knowledge of how they need to obtain their coverage and reach the areas lacking. They have software and knowledge. This is a critical infrastructure. The community relies on wireless services these days. First responders also rely on wireless services. Why 65 feet plus a 4-foot lightning rod? Our goal is to minimize the number of cell towers that are placed in the area. I actually drove by and I took a picture of 3 cell towers all in a group on 100 North. You guys are familiar? 3 of them have 1 carrier on them. This is what we're trying to avoid. And having 1 cell tower with it being that height, we can allow for 3 carriers in one place. This will eliminate the number of cell towers and you can get the service that you need and desire. So I'm happy to show the picture, or you guys, you can drive by there and see it. It's crucial. There's a 10-foot gap in between antennas. So if you think about it, we've got the 65 feet. The first carrier will be at 60 feet. Second carrier will be at 50. Third carrier will be at 40. Your limit is at 35. We're really close, right? To get 3 carriers on there. This is what it requires. So we're requesting that. That height is necessary to provide coverage for 3 carriers. And the hillside actually helps us with additional height so we can keep the height limit low and try to keep it concealed the best we can. Then the height is necessary for the community. We are following the process. When we came in, we did a lease with Heber City, just as we would with a individual homeowner. We would follow the same process we would have to. So we've signed a lease. There's nothing been done in secret. We have just gone through the process. The public meeting is here, and this is part of the process. We will follow the process all the way through. I'm happy to answer any questions at the end, or if you guys come up with any.
If you're willing, Senator, could you have a seat at the table, and then if there are some questions that are
You're welcome.
technical and you're
Yes, sir.
within reach, if that's okay. Very well, thank you. So Robin, would you be so kind as to give us some direction as to what it is and how a public hearing is then executed or implemented?
If you want to come up and make a comment, make sure that you state your name. You have 3 minutes to state your whatever you want to say. And we ask that you don't repeat what someone else has said. You could come up and say, I agree with what so-and-so said, or something like that, just so that the meeting doesn't take as long. So if you just agree, just say, I agree with what they said. If you're online and you would like to make a comment, please unmute yourself and raise your hand, and we'll acknowledge you and you'll be able to speak. And when you are finished making your comment online, please remute yourself and take your photo back off. Any questions? Okay, let's do this.
Robin, so before we open the meeting, I just wanted to make a couple comments if I could. First of all, I think it's really important for all of us to remember as commissioners that we represent the public. That's our job. We are not elected to this position. We're appointed or asked to serve. I think it's super important that we have these public hearings. We have them pretty regularly. And I think it's really important to receive comments from the public, as is our job to review all these proposals and then think and feel as you are residents of the community. And represent that to the city council, who are our elected officials, who are decision makers. This group of citizens in front of you are not decision makers. We do, however, make a recommendation. We convene that recommendation based on our assessment, and this evening, the benefit of listening and joining with you on the topic. So we wanted to bring that with that spirit that we're all here to do good work for the city. That we love and live in. With that, at this, we'd like to open the public meeting hereby. I would ask anybody who'd like to come to the podium to introduce yourself, and you have 3 minutes to give us what you'd like to share with us this evening.
Good evening. My name is TJ Stevens. I'm an attorney at Hogan Lee Hutchinson. We just opened an office a block and a half down. I also live in Heber City in the Stone Creek community, and I've been asked by some residents of Cove Springs Way, which is the cul-de-sac where the access road is, goes to this water tower, to raise some concerns and basically ask some questions about this tower. The first concern that I have from a legal standpoint is this is in an R1 zone. It's a residential zone. All of it around it is a residential zone. And although the city owns the parcel that has the water tower, it's still an R1 zone. And when you look at the city code with regards to telecommunications towers, they're not permitted in residential zones, not even a conditional use permit. The only place they are permitted is in industrial 1 zones. And even in those zones, you need to have a conditional use permit. My concern is that the process of trying to get this approved is being done through an MDA, which I don't think is appropriate in this process. This is not a master development community or planned a PUD. It's simply a cell tower. And I believe the MDA process is being used inappropriately in order to try to install a telecommunications tower in a residential 1 zone. I would also equate this, even though this is city-owned property where the water tower is, there are city-owned parks that are in residential areas. And would we allow a telecommunication tower to be installed in a city-owned park that's in a residential area? I don't think we would. I don't think the city council would, and I don't think planning commission would do that. This is surrounded by, it's a complete residential area. I live close to it. I used to drive down it on Valley Hills all the time before the bypass road finally got finished. And now I take that down to Main Street. But it is a residential area. And a lot of, I imagine you're going to hear, and I'm not going to get into it, but a lot of residents that live close to this proposed tower having concerns over health concerns of 5G network and a tower. The other thing that needs to be addressed is this is a hill that's just scrub brush. There are no trees. And so this eyesore of a tree, even though you say it's concealed, it's going to look really odd. I mean, you'd be better off doing 3 35-foot trees to make it look like there's some sort of something that grew there that shouldn't have grown there. So it's not going to be concealed. It's going to be an eyesore, and it should be located. There should be I would encourage the city, the Planning Commission, to look at alternative locations, specifically in industrial zones away from where people live, where their homes are. And so I think that's all the time I have. But thank you.
My name
We
is
would
Gary.
ask, before you begin, we would ask a favor, if you don't mind. We welcome all opinions, so while we appreciate the favor of applauding, we would ask you to keep that to a minimum. Thank you.
My name is Gary Bradley. I live directly behind the water tank in Heber on 1200 East. I've discussed this matter with my neighbors, Rick Lindsay, Claude Bethea, Chris Grange, etc. And the bottom line is we would prefer not to have that tower there. It affects the view corridor. It's a beautiful view corridor. Those in Red Ledges in the higher elevations, those in the new development just north of the tower, and all the homes along 1200 East all have that view corridor, and this will be a negative for all of us. Looking at alternatives, obviously the 35-foot tower versus the 70-foot tower would be much preferred. If for whatever reason the city determines that the 70-foot is necessary, then we would propose that it be put on the west side of the tower on the lower elevation, so that the top of the tower is about equal to the existing towers today. And another alternative would be to put 2 35-foot towers rather than 1 70-foot tower. And that would reduce the negative impact on the views. And if none of that works, and of course the first choice would be that the city find another location, but if that can't be done, then I have discussed with Claude Bethea and myself. We have the properties right behind the water tower. We're just west of the water tower, just east of the water tower. Though the company has approached us to put the tower on our property, and we rejected that. We didn't want to irritate all of our neighbors. But under the circumstances, we would open that opportunity up again. So bottom line is no tower, preferably. Reduce the height to 2 35-foot towers, or put all the towers lower on the west side so that the top of the towers don't exceed the existing towers that surround the water tower. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Erin Schilt. I live at 1540 North Valley Hills Boulevard, right next door to the water tower and where the proposed tower would be. I'm here to strongly oppose the proposed cell tower that essentially doubles the height allowed by our current zoning laws. This is not just about one tower. It's setting a dangerous precedent that prioritizes corporate interests over the well-being, safety, and rights of our community. Let's be clear, zoning laws exist for a reason. They protect property values, preserve neighborhood character, and ensure safety. If we allow this tower to exceed those limits by nearly 100%, what's stopping the next company from demanding even more? This project is a direct challenge to the rules we all agreed to follow. Beyond legality, we must consider the impact on our community. A tower of this scale would be an eyesore, devaluing nearby homes, like mine, and altering the landscape we love. Studies have shown that large towers can lower property values by as much as 20% in residential areas. Who among us is willing to take that loss so a corporation can expand its reach at our expense? There are also legitimate health concerns. While the long-term effects of high-powered cellular radiation are debated, what is not in question is that residents will be forced to live under an unprecedented level of exposure. If there is any uncertainty about the risks, why would we allow a project that goes beyond the safety limits we already set? And let's not forget transparency. This project has moved forward with little or no effort to keep the public informed. I learned about the tower, one literally in my own backyard, from a small snow-covered notice on a sandwich board alongside the road. Details about the scale and impact of this tower were not widely disseminated, leaving the community in the dark about what is being planned. How can we be expected to weigh in on something we don't really even know is happening? Lack of transparency breeds distrust, and right now the people making these decisions have not earned our trust. We're not against technology. We understand the need for connectivity, but we refuse to accept corporate overreach at the cost of our community's character, safety, and property values. We have zoning laws for a reason, and we demand that they be respected. I urge our local officials, listen to the people, reject this proposal, or at the very least postpone this vote so the entire community can have a fuller understanding of the costs and benefits of the tower. We urge you to stand with the people who live here, not just those who profit from us.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Stacy Basilius Haynes, and I live just south of Erin. I also look right up at the tower. I did send an email after I got the letter last week. These comments are in addition to what I said. I had some more research. So as Atlas said, allowing a 70-foot, 69-foot tower will allow them to have 3 carriers and more antenna than a 34-foot tower would allow. The more antenna on a tower, the higher the RF radiation. The American Cancer Society states that RF waves from cell towers aren't proven to be entirely safe, and that most experts agree more research is needed, especially regarding long-term effects. In August of 2021, the U.S. Court of Appeals in the District of Columbia ruled the FCC's decision to keep outdated 1996 RF exposure guidelines as arbitrary and capricious, given the rise of new technologies and surge of internet, including 5G. The court ordered the FCC to address this, but it hasn't done that yet, and the standards from almost 30 years ago remain in effect. So to say that it meets the FCC standards is not a comfort to me at this point. Cell tower radiation is classified as high risk by insurance companies, and Verizon and other carriers acknowledge unknown level of legal risk from health-related lawsuits due to the effects of RF transmitters. My point is that there's insufficient data on the long-term health effects of living near cell towers, but there's enough evidence to raise concern. I have a 5-year-old son and a 3-year-old daughter. This tower will be located just a few hundred feet from my property. For context, a white paper published in an Elsevier journal reviewed evidence linking RF radiation from cell towers to negative health effects and recommends restricting the antennas within 500 meters of schools and hospitals to protect companies from future liability. This is a radius of about 1/3 of a mile. I recognize the opportunity to argue a 34-foot cell tower in our backyard has passed. The lease has been signed. The question is, will the city approve an exception that exposes my children and those of all the surrounding families to higher amounts of RF radiation by approving a tower that is 2 times the city limit? As the gentleman stated earlier, this is a residential zoning with an exception for the city, still within a residential zone. It's unclear why city property is exempt from the same requirement, but even more concerning is that staff is recommending approval of a telecom tower that doesn't meet current city standards. If this tower were being considered in an undeveloped area where no residents were currently living, consideration of a proposal outside of city standards might be reasonable and make sense. Given this is a developed existing residential neighborhood and that the prohibition on telecom towers in residential areas inexplicably does not apply to city property, city staff at a minimum, in the spirit of being a good neighbor and maintaining the integrity of its own policies, should require its own standard to be met. I ask that the commission deny this request. If you are not inclined to do so, I ask that you move to continue this item to another meeting and direct staff to bring something back that is in line with city standards. Favoring the developer's request at the expense of current residents is unneighborly and unreasonable. I do thank you for your time and efforts. I know you guys are volunteers, so thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Justin Mosley. I also live just right down the street from where this proposed tower is going to go. The reason I'm here tonight is I also have 3 young children, and the health is the main reason, to be honest. There's been thousands of independent studies done on the biological effects of RF radiation from cell phones and these towers. To put it in a residential zone like this would just be irresponsible. I mean, what are the long-term effects, like everyone else has said? And the other thing that I wanted to talk about is I don't understand the need for a tower in this location. Maybe I have a special phone or something, but I have coverage all through that area up there in the Cove and in the new development area. When I mountain bike over there, I have coverage. If you go to the websites of AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile, their coverage maps pretty much cover all of Heber City, with little or no gaps, especially in the area where this tower is proposed. So I don't understand the need for the tower at this moment. Again, I ask you guys to consider, the health and wellness of our community, and especially all the families that live up in that area. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Michael Levin. I own the lot just below the water tower, which has an easement on it that gives the only access to that area. So, when they're doing work on the water tower, they drive across my property to get up there. And I knew that when I bought the property, obviously, but they don't do a lot of work up there. You're talking about building a construction something there in a quiet cul-de-sac with kids, with trucks driving up and down that area. In addition, I didn't know about this till, 3 or 4 days ago. So I had somebody flying in for business tonight. I canceled that to be here tonight. I think it's real important that this doesn't happen. It will devalue all of our properties. I'm not going to get into the health stuff because everybody already did, but that's pretty much it. I just think it's an eyesore. I think it's going to be dangerous for kids playing there, and I really don't want the properties in the area to devalue. Oh, I'd like to ask one other thing. Since many of us feel like we didn't know about this in enough time to prepare, we'd ask for a continuance to have an opportunity to research this and go forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tom Reed. I live on Callaway, just below where this tower will be. I just want to add my voice and to the record that I feel this is a significant health risk to our community, to our area. I agree with what's been said, and I would urge you to recommend to the City Council that they find another location. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Ken McConnell, and I live right below the water tower there. My 2 concerns, one is the fact that we have a huge pine tree growing in a desert, and I don't think it's going to be very appropriate to have that there. My other concern is the health factor of the 5G radiation that's going to be affecting a lot of the residents and the children that live in that area. So I have a question of this group here. How many of you here would like to see that tower put up there? Raise your hand, would you please? Nobody cares about the tower? Okay, I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Todd Anderson. I live also on Callaway Drive, just below where this tower would be. My main piece, and we've discussed this before when I've presented in front of council, in front of these groups, is to look and say, has something been brought? As was said before, I don't have any problems getting cell service anywhere in the city. Is there something that's showing us some maps and showing that here is what's being gained by this? I always want to look and say, if we're going to change something and make a change into our zoning, making exceptions onto things, what's the gain for the citizens that aren't here? Because that's always the people, it's, the people who show up here are the people who don't want it. But where's the maps that says, here's what's being gained? Here's the hundreds of houses that are suddenly getting service that are without, that we don't seem to know about. So I'd ask to say, as these things come in front of you, ask what's the gain and what's the, what are we giving up to get to that? And I don't think we've been approached with what's the positive that's coming out of this that gives us a reason to say, this is why we need this. So please say, look at that.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Wade Scroggins. Sorry. I live at 1820 North Coast Springwells Way, so I'm right in the thoroughfare for anyone needing to do work, the build, service from all the different carriers up and down our same road. We bought the cul-de-sac with the intent of having a cul-de-sac to use. We also recently purchased the lot next door to us at 1840, and we're in the middle of the construction now for that. So the depreciation hit for me, if it's up to 20% in depreciation, that's $1 million hit for me. And I don't know how many other people here are going to take that kind of substantial financial loss. That's one thing I really want to emphasize. The second thing is, this is an established community. Almost everything is built and been built. And if we're going to put something like this in, typically these belong in these other areas where it's not in the middle of an established neighborhood. It's in an industrial area. It's along the highway, or it's behind a pawn shop. That's typically where you see these kind of developments. Not after the fact, like, oh, by the way, we changed our mind. We want to put this there. And there is nothing stealth about it. There is not. It's just brush. And even at that, is sparse. The one question I do have, and ma'am, this is for Atlas. Were there other locations in consideration? What was your plan B? What's your plan C? Or was there another modification or thought in the event if there were a lot of objection or concerns for the location that we're talking about today with the height request?
The thought was actually,
Sorry, could you just speak into the microphone?
you can hear me, I'm sorry.
That little green light should be on. Yeah, thank you. It's on, I believe.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
there we are.
So, so we had actually talked about, the height is necessary. We had talked about possibly, if you guys would rather if they did a painted monopole where it's just a pole. But that was another option was,
I understand.
look at other locations, I'm sorry.
Right. No, I'm sorry.
But it was a gated community and we need access, for the carriers. The access is not, it's not heavy traffic. The construction would last 3 to 4 weeks. And then there would maybe be a truck once a month just for servicing.
If it's anything like Utah broadband, it is nowhere near once a month. And now you're adding 3 other carriers. I agree to disagree on that part. I understand you're needing the height because of the number of carriers, but it doesn't make the location the right location. It's better fit elsewhere where it belongs in the proper zoning in non-established neighborhoods with all the things that go along that everyone else here has already talked about this evening. So anyway, that was my point.
Thank you.
Patrick, I live in Wasatch View. I'm just supporting neighbors and friends. And I just want to say that everybody said it's an established R1 community. The city has annexed a whole bunch of land north. Why don't they put it there so when people are going to build, they see it, they know what they're going to get into? It would just cause a lot less hassle. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Christopher Grange, and I'm in Wasatch Views as well. I'm actually right behind Gary Bradley. And so that, Pam brought it up, and that's something that I agree with, is just to the northeast of us, there is 2 or 3 water towers that are higher up on the mountain that might give you the elevation that you need without the height of the tower that could be less obstructive, that you don't have homes behind and ruining views, that you can put it up in there and you guys already have an area if it's zoned for that. And that's far enough away from the homes, from the radiation issues, and it just seems like a lot better place to put it than, like everybody said, in an established area. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Hi, Troy Johnson. I just live north of the Tower, Cove Estates. If a height exception is made to this tower, my concern would be what other possible future exceptions to the rule could this open the door to in the future? I don't know if you can comment now, or if it's just something to consider. Possible to comment, or?
We as a commission get to give our comments a little later. But Go ahead.
Noted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Scroggins.
Hi.
I'm his better half. We do, obviously have a vested interest. I'm not going to repeat everything what everyone said, but I think in the effort of transparency, that this is also a financial decision, both for the city, for financial gain, for Atlas and the provider's financial gain, and for us as the residents' financial loss. And I'd like to know, I'd like to see that. I think that we need to see what is in the development, the future development of Heber, because I think it's the cart before the horse today, in that there is so much growth everywhere. We didn't want to tell people about this beautiful place, and it's getting too big. And so I understand that, and that we do, we'd like more service, but echoing what everyone else said, we have great service where we are. I'm 2 houses down from the water tower, and there will be trucks up and down that all the time. And my granddaughter, who is going to be living next door to me, will not be able to play outside because of that. So, all of those things, yes, I'm emotional about it, but I think the financial piece would be important for us to know, not just about what future loss could be, but in terms of the health issues, because I am in an industry that I know about underwriting, and I know that future health issues, there could be exclusions. They're already talking about that now, that if you live in 300 yards or so from facilities like this, that you could be excluded from healthcare or have higher premiums for that. And that's very important for all of us to know. So that's it.
Thank you. So for those online, we're not seeing any hands right now. Robin, are you seeing any hands? There we go. Let's start with Michael. Could you come off of mute and turn your camera on?
Yep. Am I good?
There you are. Thank you, Michael. Go ahead.
I share the sentiment of everyone that's spoken so far, and will do my best not to repeat things. I've got a young daughter under 3 and another one on the way, so health issues of course are top of mind. But just from I guess like a logic standpoint, what I can't wrap my head around is why we're looking at a tower that's twice the height of the city limit when Starlink exists. Is there actually even a need for this? I don't have any cell issues here in town. I live right in the Cove. I'm around town all the time. I don't have any issues, so I don't actually see a problem and know that there's a solution that doesn't include huge towers. Further, usually when a variance is approved, there has to be some sort of proof of unnecessary hardship. Have we seen anything like that, or has Atlas presented any unnecessary hardship? Because if we have coverage and 35 South 35-foot towers work, or in many of our cases, no new towers at all seems to work just fine. What's the hardship, and has it been proved yet?
Great. Thank you, Michael. I believe we have two more people with their hands up. Let's, who do we have, Robin? Can you know?
We got Matt Tanner, Kristen Thompson, and then Jay.
Let's start with Matt. Matt, could you please come off of mute and turn your camera on?
I sure can. Thank you. Hi, my name is Matt Tanner. I live here in the Cove Estates at 2019 North Cove Springs Way. My front yard and porch look directly upon the water tower and the proposed area. I stand before you here today as a concerned resident, a parent, and as a voice for the many neighbors you are hearing today who are deeply opposed to the construction of this tower. I think it bears repeating many of the things that the team has, or that the neighborhood has shared thus far. We're in direct violation of our zoning laws and established codes, which were put in place to protect the integrity, the safety, and the character of our community. They exist for a reason, to ensure that developments are compatible with the areas they impact. And if we ignore these laws today, as you've heard from many of my neighbors, what precedent are we setting for future projects? Beyond those legal concerns, they present potential safety and environmental risks. There are valid concerns about the long-term exposure of RF frequencies and emissions, particularly for young children. This is a young neighborhood. I have 3 young children myself who play on these streets and walk around these areas. Lastly, I would say, from a character and value of our neighborhood, we've invested in this city, in this neighborhood, in this area, and creating exceptions for large businesses does not seem to serve our interests, but only that of the cities and these companies. It's unclear, as other neighbors have shared, as to the benefit and the need, as the gentleman before me just noted, the hardship presented by the organization wishing to build this. And until these various thresholds have been crossed or communicated, I don't believe it is appropriate to build something like this in our neighborhood. Ultimately, sure, we all need strong and reliable cell service, but it shouldn't come at the expense of our community's well-being. As many have noted, there is no issue with cell service around here, and we have plenty of places to build in this city that could serve this region. I urge the council to listen to the voices of the people who actually live here. We don't want this tower. It violates our codes, it threatens our safety, and it devalues our homes. Please uphold the laws meant to protect us and reject this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tanner. Christian Thompson, I think you're next. Could you come off of mute and turn on your camera?
Sure. Hi, I'm Christian Thompson, resident here in Heber City, live by the cemetery. I just want to echo everybody else's statements. We have zoning laws for a reason. They should be respected. That's it. And the tower doesn't belong there.
Thank you. I believe we have one remaining hand. Jay, I believe, is here. Could you turn on your camera, turn off mute?
Hi, yes, this is Jamie Hewlett. I just have a couple questions. Why is an MDA being used for this? And also, what are the legalities of a public meeting? Who has to be notified? How soon? And the different technicalities of that. Also, also the public notice signs, they were put in after a huge snowstorm. So I think it was really hard for anyone to see those. So I was wondering, what you guys have, what you guys think about that. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Tony, could you please advise us on the notification for public meetings in terms of what is normally done by ordinance?
Yeah, so it's a 10-day notice. State code allows sign posting on the property. The other alternative that is permitted is letters to join property owners.
Right. That's very familiar. Okay.
Which we did both.
Gotcha.
We actually only put out one sign at the beginning, which is what's required, and then we know that there were instruments
So 2 signs ultimately were put out by the time we hit 48 hours. About that? Okay. Sorry, just, I have to address the question that was asked. You will have your turn. Mark, you're here. Perhaps you could help us with how the MDA process, or Tony, whichever, how was that chosen as a vehicle for this approach or this appeal?
Thank you, Phil. I may defer to Tony, but there were 2 processes. You could either do an amendment to the code, as I understand, or the zoning, or you could do a master development agreement, which is, there's been some comment that that's illegal. I don't know that that's illegal, but inappropriate. And and I can understand your position on it, but it is one of the options to do it. Remember that this was a solicitation from the tower, and the process is they come, they talked about having a lease because it's city-owned property, and so you have the city as the owner. So that's the first step. But there has been no decision made. There's been no, there was a public meeting, but there wasn't a public hearing. That's what this is. So that's by process through the planning department. There's no requirement for the planning commission to make a decision. There has been good suggestions maybe to give time to look into these issues, the health situations. I don't think the city has any independent information with regard to that, but it's obviously a concern and something to look through. But it's just part of the process. You have an application, it comes to the planning commission, you have a public hearing so that you can hear all the different concerns, and then you can either postpone the decision on the recommendation and request more time to review. You can have independent parties come in and address a number of issues that have been brought up, and I appreciate the way that it has been handled. I've been involved with the city about 30 years. This is one of the most sophisticated and well-presented arguments, and civilly. So I would applaud you. I appreciate that. And staff and the city appreciate it. But you could have independent entities make a presentation or do research with regard to the health benefits or the health problems. Yeah, not benefits. Also, look to other locations if there are other locations. If there are other, do you want to add to it?
Well, yeah, I think
Well,
you're just
so-
getting off track.
so sorry,
I think
just
the
a second.
question was why an
Yeah,
MDA?
thank you, Tony. So thank you, Mark.
Yeah, so I just wanted to get
Go
you
ahead,
back on
Tony.
track, and I can help specifically with that answer. So yeah, there are 3 choices. Variance is not something that can be done here. That's not appropriate or legal. Variances are only done by either a board of adjustment or which we do have. That's a quasi-judicial decision. The other 2 options include changing the code or doing a development agreement. Both of those are legislative decisions or discretionary, so the city's not obligated to do those, and there can be negotiation in that process. Why did a development agreement be proposed instead of a code amendment? A code amendment potentially could be citywide as opposed to one specific site. So rather than amending the code and opening up 70-foot cell towers everywhere, this would be an opportunity to just say, no, we're going to do it at this particular location. And of course, yeah, could that location be somewhere else? Yeah, I don't know, but.
Thank you, Tony. I believe that's consistent with what we understand as the Planning Commission, that a variance, therefore, or a change of code would be global And this is targeted to a very specific request. So when we look at very targeted requests that do not escalate or move up to a level of something that would be best across the whole city, then the MDA is therefore what we normally will see as a methodology for very specific. And I just want to make sure that everyone understands that it's not against an ordinance or a law, but rather it's a means by which we can do individual changes that are best for that project. Not particularly this one, but in general. So, but that's, I just wanted to explain. So Jamie, I believe we answered your question. With that, anybody else online?
Looks like Mel McQuarrie is on.
Mel, can you come off mute and turn on your camera, please? Yeah.
Can you hear me?
And we will get to you. Sorry. Yes, Mel, we can hear you.
Okay, you ready for me now, or you want me to come in later?
Actually, I'd like you to pause for a second because you had somebody ahead of you. Yes, ma'am, your turn.
My name's Galen Latimer, and I live on Callaway, and it's in my backyard, the monster. So I just wanted to make a comment. He had said that how well behaved we are. It's because we're in shock. We're in shock because we've only known about this like in the last couple of days. We haven't had a chance to process it. Like the sandwich boards were in the snow, and it was in a location where you couldn't really stop to get the flyer out. So two of us, Deb and myself, yesterday went through the entire neighborhood, talked to as many people as we could to let them know that was going on. So you should get a ton of emails because all.
So far, I think we have 27.
Okay, well, all right.
No,
Then my
we-
people
we-
did not.
we
did not-
appreciate that.
They did not come through to me.
In our experience, that could be a ton.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll text them all to tell me. But what I need to ask is, of the 20 people that I talked to, only 3 of us had it mailed to us, the information. So how is that possible that my entire street, how many here, I'm gonna do what my husband did. Show of raise a hand of how many actually had this information mailed to their home. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, like maybe 5 days ago. And so everybody should have had their hands up. And so I don't know, is there a way for me to let the neighborhood know what we need to do to get on some list that when any of these notifications come out, we're not looking at a sandwich board in the snow, it actually comes to our home. Thank you.
Point taken. Thank you. Okay, Mel, please, sir, if you don't mind, just give us a second that we got Mel online. Yes, Mel.
Yes, I own a property on 698 Callaway. I own 790 East Lakeview, and I own the 4.5 acres around the site and the 2.5 acres across the street. So I'm probably the most affected person in the neighborhood. What I believe, though, is if these folks can follow true process, and they are allowed by code to do that, they should be treated equally. I have no problem with the tower if they follow that procedure, and I welcome it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Shane Cummings. I don't live up there, but I'm speaking on behalf of my mother, Deanna Cummings. My question is, with all the different entities needing to access that piece of ground, how exactly are they getting up there? You know, a gentleman referenced that there was an easement coming through the circle, and I don't know what the name of that circle is. But could somebody show me how the city and Utah Broadband and Atlas would access that, the water tower?
We should be able to answer that question.
Cold Springs Way, it's that cul-de-sac right there, above the tower, right there. Like that, right? Okay, so what you're saying is you're coming up the hill right there above Canal Cave. Does anybody realize that's private property?
Hence the easement.
Hence the easement, yeah.
I'm sorry?
There's an easement to
No,
it.
there's not. There is not an easement there. When you come along the canal, when you come out of that cul-de-sac and you come along the canal and you come straight up, that's private property.
So Tony, I'm going to have to defer to you on that.
Access and only CUP, not everybody else, because I run into that.
There, as far as I know, has never been anything in writing for access to that water tower. If you look, there's a line that goes directly west and then I guess directly south up to the water tower. If you can see that. No, come back down. Above the circle, you can just see a faint. Yeah, exactly. Before my father died, he said that was the city's access in. It's been allowed through the years, but, and I'm not saying it's not allowed, but with more people needing to access that water tower, I'm just wondering, what's the city's,
So we're seeing,
how to
obviously,
get there?
so obviously we're seeing a road to the water tower that's been used quite a bit. You're saying that's cutting through private property and is not currently under any legal easement?
No.
And Tony, is that consistent with your knowledge?
Well, I think what I'm hearing you say, Mr. Cummings, is legal access would be like this. Is that right?
Exactly. That's what I was told by my father. I guess what I'd just like to know what the city's end plan is for being able to access that water tower without crossing private property.
I would imagine that we would take this conversation to that extent of looking at the map and understanding who owns that property. When the lease was created for that, Mark, perhaps you were familiar more than anybody with the lease for that.
My understanding is that there is access there. You wouldn't have been able to put a tower, a water tower up there without access. I don't know the particulars of it, but we can certainly look into that and get the details.
Well, and I think you're right. I mean, if you look at the map there and you zoom in on the cul-de-sac, there actually is a gate right here. But for years, people have driven around the gate. They get to this point, and you're probably right, Mr. Cummings, this probably is the legal access. But it was probably easier to go to the easiest point,
yeah.
right?
And that's fine.
Right. And should that continue? Probably not.
But with the addition of more and more entities needing to access that, I'm just curious. What is the true legal access to that water tower?
Well, if I'm hearing you correctly, right, like that, where this cursor's.
I don't know that for sure. That was just something that my dad told me before he died.
Well,
he understood.
on
a lot
behalf of
more
the
than
water
that.
tower, we're going to find out.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Regardless
I'd
of,
love to know.
regardless of a cell tower, we're probably going to find out.
It's something that needs addressed.
No, I appreciate that.
So,
Thank you very much. Okay.
May I
Do you have
chime
any
in,
other-
Mel McQuarrie?
Sorry. Do I have a speaker online?
Yes, Mel McQuarrie. Shane is correct. I'm the owner of the property that the easement goes along. And Shane is correct. The easement crossing the private, there is no easement across the private property. It's been used. And if the intent is to continue to use it, they're going to have to get permission. The easement in place is along the property line of me. And then it comes up from the Snell, I think it's the Snell property on the west side, and it's narrow. It's roughly, I think if I remember correctly, it's 10 feet. The current towers that are up there are crossing my property without permission. And so the easements need to be cleared up. And like I say, when I say due process, that's what I mean. Get them all cleared up, get it in line, and then it works for me. If they can't do that, then it doesn't work for me. But anyway, wanted to confirm what Shane said. He is correct.
Thank you, sir. Yes.
Hi, my name is Cami Nevaker, and I live on 1461 Lakeview Drive. Pardon my ignorance, but my question is, because I don't know the background of this, did the city seek out the services of someone like Atlas to provide more cell service, or did Atlas come to the city to provide that? Do we know?
The latter.
Okay, all right, that says a lot. And I wish you luck for having courage to do what's right.
Do we have anybody else online? Okay.
I'm Rick Lindsay, and I live up the hill from the tower.
Could you speak up a little bit, sir?
Sure.
Thank
I'm
you.
Rick Lindsay, and this is a city meeting, right?
This is the city's planning commission.
Okay, so the rule is 45 feet, right?
No, sir.
In this zone, 35.
It's 35 feet in the
So
citywide.
why are we going to break the rules? What's the purpose? Who's going to benefit from it? Sounds like it's already going through, and I know who the beneficiaries are. The people, I mean, all these people are against it, right? So this is amazing because nobody gave a shit about the property taxes. So I got like 4 guys, right? And I tried to get everybody riled up. Nobody would do the right thing. So I'm doing the right thing. So, you know, I think this is wrong. And I don't know, I found out about it today. So, you know, it sounds like you guys have already made the decision, and these fine people have been here and they've given you, it's like the easement. Well, you can fix that. The notice, they'll just send out another notice, have another meeting. So I just get a bad feeling about what's going on here. And, you know, why? Who is going to benefit from it? Somebody's making money. And with Starlink, I didn't think about that. These cell towers are a thing of the past. So I hope you make the right decision.
Do we have any other comments? Okay, hearing none. We will now close the public hearing at this moment. Thank you very much. With that, Tony, could you remind us of our process now moving forward as a planning commission?
Yeah, yes, Chairman. So longstanding policy has been on an item with a public hearing that the Planning Commission not make the decision that same night as a public hearing. And so that decision in a normal course of would be delayed.
Okay.
So I'd encourage you to not make that decision tonight. You've heard a lot of comments, heard a lot of good ideas for alternatives. I can't remember who that was, but brilliant. Forget who that gentleman was, but a lot of great ideas came out. Some issues that we can look at before you talk about this again.
Okay. Also, as this moves forward from the Planning Commission, if it does with a negative or a positive, what is the next step for the City Council looking at this?
So after the Planning Commission acts, whether positive or negative, the City Council would likely have this go to a work meeting where it would be presented in a non-decision format of here's what your Planning Commission has recommended. The council would then give staff direction to come back at the next meeting, and there would either be action for or against by the council.
Very good. So did I hear you say that there would be another public process for that, another public meeting perhaps?
Well, there's going to be more public meetings. Obviously, Planning Commission is going to have at least one more. City Council would have at least two
On this.
on this item. Yep.
It's important to note, everyone, that this is the first of what I've just heard would be 3 of these meetings. So to your point, sir, we are far from being done on this subject. Very good. With that, our public comment area is closed, sir. Did you have something new to offer? Yes, we have received all the emails. Yes, it's all in the yes. Thank you for that. I was going to note that we've 26, perhaps even more since the meeting started, emails from all of y'all, as we'd say somewhere down south. And we are definitely seeing them in the record. And I can tell you that every one of us read them all before we got to the meeting. So that's good. With that, public meeting has been had. We've closed it. Now it's opportunity for the commissioners to be able to express some of their opinions at this time.
You go.
I just want to ask a couple questions before we lose too much of the crowd. I'm just wondering how many people know that there's, and this isn't saying it's okay. I'm just wondering how many of you know that there's already a cell tower there. Okay. I just want to make sure everybody in transparency knows that. And then the second thing I just want to say is thank you all so much for coming. This is a great crowd. 26 emails is a ton of emails. And this is exactly why we're here and why we have public comment. And so when folks can show up and express how they feel about it, it really helps us, as it is our job to represent well. And it sounds like there's some frustration about what the process is. And the process certainly isn't perfect, but this is the process. And I know it was really short notice for you all to be here, but again, I appreciate you coming. And as they mentioned, there will be more meetings and more public comment available. And although the process doesn't seem to be very streamlined or easy, this is the process, and you're being part of the process that will help everybody make a decision on this. Certainly no decisions have been made yet, which is why we're all here. And I will say, as somebody who runs a business, I've said this a bunch of times, Mark's the hardest part in getting the word out. And I'm sure in addition to other ways in which we could figure out the situation, we're probably also open to other ways in which we could get the word out about these types of things. And then along the transparency line, again, if you go to the city website and you look at the agenda, I think the agenda has to be posted 6 or 7 days prior to the meeting. If you go to the packet, you can actually see the full agreement between the city and the tower company. So really the transparency is there. It's not that easy to find, but it is all out there, and it is typically posted 6 to 7 days in advance of the meeting. So not to lecture, just to give you guys that information that so many people are always looking for, and it's not super easy to find. But again, thanks for being here.
Thank you,
You
Tori.
see all the
Josh, go
documents
ahead.
that we see as well. So that everything that is on the city website is exactly what we see, and we normally get it on Thursday, if not Friday. So we only have 4 days to go through, but we have gone through all the emails. I think I texted Jamie earlier, who works in the planning department. I'm like, so how many more of these we're getting? We're getting more of them. That's one reason why we had a stalled start, is so we could read all those. It is very impressive. I was born and raised here in the early 80s. It is so gratifying to see citizens taking an interest in what we do, not just when it affects you, but when it affects your neighbor, affects someone down the stream. It is very gratifying to see you all here supporting one another, but also coming in and learning the process and knowing what we do here, because you need to hold us accountable and we need to hold you accountable as well. That's why we have limits, and we have speaking limits and stuff. But to echo what Phil has said, and to echo what Tori has said, and Mark especially, this has been one of the most, I dare say, well-behaved public hearings. And this is by far not a done deal. I have huge concerns about, I have 5 pages of notes I typed about the 5G network, about the R waves, about all the different stuff there, because I live under power lines downtown. I wish we had buried power lines downtown. It's just not financially feasible to do it. But I have huge concerns here. but this is far from over with.
Thank you, Josh. Anyone else? Robert?
I'm still trying to wrap my head around how high this thing's going to be. Can anybody tell me how high the tower is behind Chicks?
It's 35, right? Should be.
Offhand, I don't know offhand.
You know,
My understanding is it's 35 feet above the
Only
grade.
35 feet?
Above the ground that it's actually.
It would be really helpful for me to see a rendering of a 70-foot tall stealth tree in the middle of this project and see what it really looks like. Because the representations we've seen of it are in other locations, and I don't think that it necessarily matches. It would be really helpful to have that perspective from maybe 3 or 4 of the viewpoints right around this thing these people are going to be looking at.
From the curve of Valley Hills because it's at the top, very elevated, and it more than doubles the double request. You're literally looking at about 100 feet, 200 feet, you're hitting from the curve of the street.
Yeah, I think it'd be really helpful to get that, and I want to buttress, I guess, what some of the other commissioners have said. We don't come in here with a done deal. We come here to really listen. We are prepared. We've looked at this and we understand basically what it's about. We've seen the staff report. We've seen the drawings. But it's important to get input from people that live around it. I know what that's like. I know what I wouldn't like in my neighborhood. But sometimes we need to hear it. And I'll tell you what, if what it takes is getting short notice to people in order to have a Ruley hearing, we ought to shorten the notice period because this has been awesome.
Could our representative from Atlas give us an idea about some of the things they've heard tonight, reference to alternatives? For instance, I understand that there's an alternative water tower that is actually already in place, higher than the current water tower, that could easily provide this kind of coverage you're looking for without adding a single structure to the community. Setting aside the health issue for 1 minute.
Right. You're talking about the one that's in the gated community?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, we can't access that 24 hours. That was an issue that came up when we looked.
Okay, so 24-hour access is required for it to be considered.
Yes, for emergency servicing, yes, absolutely.
Okay. And then the question that was also raised reference to alternatives that would be additional 35-foot high towers for getting you the real estate that you claim by having the higher tower. Is that not an alternative to have a second tower?
To have a second tower?
Yeah.
Well, we're trying to avoid that. They're expensive to build for one thing, but for another thing is they're not super sightly, as you could hear from what they were saying, and having two.
But there's one there now.
Adds to it, right?
Is there one there now?
Cell tower?
Yes.
I know there's some small towers. I did not know what they were. I didn't pay attention to those.
Yeah, and I think the idea that the gentleman offered was two, maybe even 3 35-foot poles. And, would that be possible to do like a
That's my question.
cluster of trees rather than just one big
Again, setting
massive-
aside the health issue for 1 second.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tony. Yeah, so. Well. Okay, thank you. Let's go back to our commission.
Well, I'd like to say I've been on this commission for several years now. I've never seen such a well-attended public hearing and hear so many helpful and articulate comments. So I admire it. Robert here next to me brought up the Chicks Cafe cell tower. When I moved here, it was the first thing that hit me was that is the ugliest thing in Heber City. And I think if you drive across the country, you start to see where they're putting up these wind power towers all over the country. And it's things like that are going to happen all the time as we move forward. So we have to consider that as people representing you, so we understand what you're saying and what the future holds for us as well. I think it's going to take a lot of thought and process, because I don't know where any place else to put it right now, but I think we have to take a strong look at what the alternatives are.
Greg, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I just want to know how you came up that we needed cell phones coverage. I've got good coverage where I live, and I live below it, but everybody here is talking about they've got great coverage at their house. So how did you come up with the notion that we needed to put a tower in for better coverage?
Yeah, so wireless companies, they look at the coverage in different ways. They look at the coverage in the house, they look at the coverage in a car, they look at the coverage, roaming, all that. The coverage is different. So if you're in your house, typically you have Wi-Fi service, and that helps. If you're just standing outside your house, if you go in your house and then you walk outside and all of a sudden you have no coverage, that happens at my house, I will say. And you walk outside and there's no coverage because the Wi-Fi is assisting. Most people have Wi-Fi, and then when you're driving around, you are moving, so you're going to bounce off towers and you may get some service. It could be spotty at times, and it could not. I did print off the coverage analysis for you guys. I meant to send that earlier and I didn't, but I'm happy to give that to you and you can have a look at it and see what they're talking about as far as coverage.
Okay, and then one other question, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Tell me about the long-term effects. I mean, do we have short-term health effects that come on after this is built? What are the long-term effects? And with other towers that you have existing, I'm concerned about the homeowners' property values as well.
Right. Okay. So first of all, I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't bring it up earlier. So the FCC, they have regulations that there is not enough radiation to affect anybody health-wise. That is something that the standard that the FCC has placed, and they have a website. So if there is health concerns, it's something that the FCC standard sets, and you cannot stop a tower because of that, because it's so low. The antennas are high up, and they do not give off enough to affect people's health. The other thing is, as a real estate agent, I do happen to know that one of the things you learn when you're in real estate school is that a house is worth what somebody's willing to pay. The bottom line. I mean, really, the market, of course, it drives it to some degree, but there might be a house where, somebody has a pool. Not everybody a pool is for them, right? So the house is not going to be worth $300,000 to that person, where another person is going to be worth that. So some people, they do not want to live somewhere where there's no cell service. They want service. They want to be able to do something. If it's sketchy or whatever, that's my take. I do know that. I've had it happen before.
Anything else, Greg?
So.
Oh, I'm good, thank you.
Josh, do you have anything you wanted to ask? Or is it?
Well, hopefully we still have an FCC after next week.
Oh, there you go. All right.
I have one more question.
Yes, Tori.
For Atlas, thank you. Is there a minimum spacing between towers required for them to still be effective, or can they be clustered?
They typically, there could be some, I forget now, I'm going to blank on some communication problems, like the signals cross, it doesn't give a clear signal. So there could be that, but typically they have them, zoning has a mile difference, a mile distance between towers. They have to have them right next to each other, that's odd. I've not come across this before where people have wanted multiple towers. So I'm just
curious if that's an option.
So I'm sorry, but typically zonings do not allow a tower more than a mile apart. And we actually do our search radius a mile from any existing tower. And we will not even look at anything closer than a mile.
So in the analysis that you've done, have you done analysis of this specific location?
Yes.
And in that analysis, who are the carriers that you're currently serving?
Well, we have 2 and 3 if it comes to be. All
Two currently and a third
2 currently.
third pending.
Desiring it, the third one is pending, they can see. if
And
it's gonna
the reason why you can't accommodate the third now has to do with this issue of proximity from the third to the other 2? Is that the reasoning?
I can tell you all 3 that are interested are 18.
No, I'm not understanding the number. I'm not understanding Tori's question. If there are 2 there now, you have a potential third. The third can't come in because you don't have enough space where you currently have the 2? Is that?
No, we don't currently have a tower.
Okay.
We're trying to build the tower for all 3.
So the data that you've gathered in the analysis is of which tower?
Oh, okay, I get what you're saying. So we put a pin in the spot. We get a lat long of where the tower is going to be. We put a pin there and we do a 1 mile radius, basically just on Google Earth. You do a 1 mile radius and it puts a circle around it. We identify all those areas, and that's how we determine.
So this third carrier has approached you to install your tower there on the basis that they can install on the current tower?
You don't know anything about.
It's too far. If it's more than 1.5 miles, they need a new tower. It's just too far for them to.
Too
Just to
far.
clarify, you don't have anything to do with the current tower.
Hold on, Mark. Just Tori, go ahead. Tori, go ahead.
She doesn't have anything to do with the current tower.
I understand. But there's a customer that she wants to serve that is an alternate to the 2 that are there now. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, do you know if you're?
Let me clarify it. I
Okay,
think
go ahead.
so. I think what she's saying is that they're building the tower. They have 2 carriers that are interested in going on the tower. There is a third that is in the gate or on the side waiting, but I think it's dependent upon either space or the size. I think that's the question that Phil was asking. Why is the third carrier not yet committed? And does it have anything to do with location or height?
Height and location, yes. They will not commit. They want to know that we've got approved for the height, because they're not gonna commit to being at a lower level where they cannot provide the service.
So if the only alternative is to, just asking here for spitballing, if the only alternative is for you to put a tower that is equal to the tower that's there now, agreed it's not your tower, would that still serve that client?
Well, are you talking about that tower on Main Street, or are you talking about the 3 higher towers that are all together?
I'm talking about the tower that's currently on this site right now.
Yeah, it's our understanding that there's already a tower on this water tank.
There's a very short one. I'm not sure who's on it or what its service is.
It's a 35-foot tower, I believe,
Those
according.
are Wi-Fi. They're not cell towers. They're Wi-Fi wireless providers. Utah. Somebody had mentioned Utah broadband. Yeah, that particular one.
Okay.
Okay.
I think we need more information.
So those are not cell towers. Those are Wi-Fi providers.
All right. Any other comments? Okay. I'm going to, we're done with public comment. Is it a new comment? Would you come to the podium then, sir? And please announce yourself again.
Michael Levin.
Hi, Michael.
I have the lot at 1741. I agree with you. I too am a real estate agent. And I agree with you. People will pay what they feel something is worth. I believe with that tower there, they're going to think my place is worth less. So that's true. And as far as the health stuff, I don't care what the FCC says. I can send you a study from the National Institute of Health and their toxicology division that said they absolutely found cancer and DNA damage as a result of these radio waves. So it's not just.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, I think we're going to wrap this up. First of all, to what you heard from Tony Kohler, we have found it best practice that whenever we have a public meeting and we have any form of input from the public that we consider to be bearing and therefore are under consideration, we defer of any decision at this meeting. Therefore, this commission will not be, or nor will I ask or will I accept as chair a motion to take any decision at this time. First. Second, I believe we've heard tonight that we have some very important information we'd like to get our hands on. Tony, we talked earlier today about the possibility of getting a third party specific to the health risks of a cell tower in this area. We recognize that that could be a cost to the city. However, I think if this truly is going to be a revenue stream for the city, then I think a portion of it should go into protecting the people around it. Therefore, it's our request that we get a third party, a disinterested third party. And I would honor the information we just heard from the National Health Institute as being referenced. So that would be helpful for us to understand. And I think that's just good information for everybody in the city, let alone us. We've also heard the opportunity perhaps for us to find other alternate locations that would be germane to this interest for the city and for this provider. We'd like to have a review of what those alternatives could be and alternative locations that are actually within the proper zoning that have already been permitted previously for this to happen, rather than going into a residential zone. In general, what you're sensing from us is a hesitation, a significant hesitation, that any good deed goes unpunished, as it were, with precedents. We're very, very concerned about the precedents. Everything we do here will last well beyond the time that we're here. So we take that very seriously. With that, we understand how the MDA process provides us targeted individual changes rather than global changes to the city. However, we take them equally with the understanding that they're precedent. So with that, we'd like to understand what alternatives the city have in engaging in this business opportunity, which certainly is interesting to some degree for all of the residents of the city and the tourists and visitors. However, for those that live near this tower, we clearly have heard tonight the impact, and we certainly do appreciate. And even before this meeting, I think everybody here understood that, and certainly our 26 emails helped us a lot today. With that, is there any other direction that the commissioners would like to have before we consider this issue again?
Chairman, your for more information for us would be health risks, alternative sites, transparency and the financial benefit.
Sure, that'd be great. That was a note. Be curious to know what that is.
Do you mind if I add something?
1 second.
Okay.
And there was one other note. Nope, that was it. The three things that were.
Tony, do you have anything else you'd like to maybe bring us as far as more information for our consideration before we bring this up again?
Like I said, I really appreciate the alternatives that were offered, the alternatives that were offered.
Yeah.
The idea of doing a couple of shorter poles.
I'm going to withdraw that recommendation.
You do? Okay. Well, you weren't the only one that said it, but it is intriguing. It would not, protrude above the ridge line. So if we're going to draw something up, that would be interesting to at least see what that would look like.
I think alternative sites are first.
Yeah. West side of the site. So I think if we're still going to continue looking at this site, we'd want to look and make sure that we look at the site plan and make sure that we're intruding as least as amount of possible on the ridge line. Somebody had mentioned an alternate tree type to a pine tree. I don't know. I mean, I've seen palm trees, but I don't think we want that. But I mean, that would be something I would want Atlas to help look at. So those are the notes that I took, Chairman.
I think if we're considering a zone change, it would be nice to see the evidence of hardship.
Not a zone change, MDA.
Sorry, could you repeat that, Tori?
Thank you. Pardon me.
I knew what you were talking about.
Yes, no, I appreciate that. Yes, if we're considering an MDA, I would like to see the evidence of what the hardship is.
Hardship to whom?
Unnecessary
To
hardship.
the height, right? Okay.
Building at all. Because we are putting something in a zone that it's not, now that I realize there's not already a cell phone tower there, then we are adding that. So why do we need to add it? And the reason we would make that change would be because of the hardship on the side of the petitioner.
Of Atlas.
Correct.
Now I understand your question. So sorry, you had a comment or a question?
That's okay. I'm going to have to email the information. I had somebody that I thought they were going to be on here. But just so you know, and I will send the information With the FCC, a decision cannot be based on health reasons. And that's what I was trying to point out earlier. I don't know if you're aware of that. That keeps coming up. And so I wanted to make sure that you're aware and that's on record.
So we can't deny you on the basis of a federal opinion? Is that what you're saying?
It's a regulation.
Regulation.
It is.
Okay, we'll look in.
Send you more
So,
information.
Mr. Smedley, I'd ask you to look into that for us, if you don't mind.
I'll make sure you get that.
Okay. Well, we've had an interesting evening. I absolutely want to, yes,
Oh,
sorry,
continue,
Josh.
sorry, I was going to make a motion.
We are not going to take any action tonight.
Oh, we don't have to do that for.
No, we do not. No, we, by precedent, have decided
It's been
that,
so long since we've had a continuance.
we're not continuing. We are deferring on any action this evening, is what we're doing. I'd like to echo what you've heard from the commission tonight. We are deeply, deeply appreciative of you coming here tonight, and we are equally concerned that you've only seen or known about this as we have about, we get this agenda literally on Thursday. We would imagine that you have gotten early, and we certainly appreciate the process that the staff has to go through to be able to acknowledge that. All that being said, we want to deeply, and yes, that's a good question. You can continue to give us comment on this to our website specifically. You have questions, any further questions that come later on. And certainly as we start to get more involved in this again, bring it back into our agenda. Those agendas are posted, I believe, on Thursday for our meeting on Tuesday. I believe that's about all we have right now for this. Is that correct?
If everybody signed in on the sheet there, we will have names and addresses. of
It's
people
true.
That we can notice.
We have names. Tony, do you want to use that list to be able to email these folks any more additional information?
Sorry, certainly emails would be preferable.
Okay.
If you could leave your email on this list, we will make sure you get an email.
So if you'd like to directly get an email on more information, how things are happening, please leave your email there. I believe at this point, we would ultimately say thank you very much for coming this evening, and we deeply appreciate all of your input.
We can do a 5-minute recess for.
Thank you. Good, how are you doing?
Yes.
You guys were good also. I know, that's.
Really nice meeting. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
Oops, sorry, I'm in the way here.
Oh, you put the link in your email? Okay.
That's how it works. Supposedly. Well, I'm more concerned about the rest of Yeah, and it's trucks, and it's.
Trouble? What are you up to? Oh, just sitting here in the planning commission. Staying out of trouble? Don't do it, it's overrated. So overrated. Oh, well, there's no concern that they brought up that we didn't already previously read before the meeting. And it's just like, I'm like, I really want to know the financial benefit, who's benefiting from it, and I'm like, I'm sorry, we may not have an FCC next week. We don't know. So are those stats viable? Especially when it's dressed up like a tree. There's got to be other places. Yeah. Yeah, my biggest thing is alternatives, location of alternatives, and the health risks. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Definitely. I read all of her notes, and I perused all of the articles she sent. She sent 5. It was a really long afternoon, but good. Very enlightening. Well, thank you. We appreciate you being here. Take care. I got a slice of pizza. Well, I haven't even drank the Coke because I'm like, I'm just sitting here. I'm like, I everything minus you know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. Where's Michelle at tonight? No bad.
We'll see you.
Maybe I'll send her some flowers tomorrow. I know where she lives. Right? I know, right? Such a friendly prick. Well, my thing is like, I'm like, I want to know if there's alternatives because I'm like, I already hate how big the valley is. Don't get me wrong. I know growth is inevitable. We all know that's inevitable. But the fact, but you know, that's the reason why I was so pissed that the city council approved the development at the north end of town by the red light. Because I'm like, it's not welcoming to the valley itself. So I'm like, people are gonna be driving in and they're gonna see it, and it's gonna be like this giant phallus on the mountain. Obviously, I can't say that while we're being recorded. So I'm just gonna look at this giant tree, and I'm like, I mean, I've seen them. There's one up at Daniel Summit Lodge. There's one by Will's Pit Stop in Provo on your way to Costa.
This conference will now be recorded.
Very well. Okay, we are reconvening on our Planning Commission meeting on the 25th of February. Next up is our work meeting with the Central Heber Overlay discussion with Mr. Kohler and Mr. Jansen. Time is yours. Yeah, let's go.
Come on, get.
Get on out of here.
I'm missing Taco Tuesday. Normally,
What happened to everybody?
We got,
We have a
we're still
quorum.
here.
Go for it, Tony. Quorum's 5. I thought we had McKinley. What happened to McKinley? Well, we got 5 here now. We're good.
Thank you, Chairman. So tonight we are reporting back to you on the Central Heber Overlay Zone. So last meeting, we presented a slide deck and a schedule. The schedule is going to change now. We had enough concerns on the slide deck that I felt we should not go to our public open house this week. I want to make sure that I've got your full support on the slide deck and you support the concept before we go to the workshop. So if you're comfortable with what we present tonight, we'll have to set up a new calendar. I think there was an idea that maybe we could go next week. It's going to be tough to pull off, especially if there's changes tonight. We do have a lot of letters that we have to send out.
So you just need direction. We don't need to take a vote. You just basically say go.
Direction. So we've
Okay.
got a new slide deck. And John, do you want to come up here? So a couple of things have happened. So first of all, you're going to see that the colors have changed. We had our public information officer rebrand these to match the city's brand and the Envision brand. So the slides have been rearranged. The second thing is we had some comments about some of the pictures and content, and so we tried to address that. We hope that as we talk about this, ideas come out and we improve it even further.
So each of these slides is going to be an individual poster at the open house. And again, we are hoping to have all of you there to help us because we got enough slides here that we need help. So
I think we've made it pretty clear to the Planning Commission that we're expected to be at this meeting.
yeah, hope so. So this one just sort of a general intro, hopefully trying to get at the difference between general plans and zoning, which seems to be confusing in the world, generally speaking. So there we go. And it just shows you a little bit about the process. Again, this would be the opener one as you walk in the door sort of thing. Let's go to the next one. Maybe.
Any particular thoughts on this one?
Oh, yeah, sorry. As we go through, let's just see if you have any other thoughts, changes.
I know Tori was concerned about one that just seemed to be really diving in the weeds. Was that this slide or was that another one?
To me, when I read this, and I'm speaking for myself, maybe the rest of you get it, but when I look at general plan, the why and the what, and then I read general policies such as land use goals and land use map, I look at that and I immediately think that somebody forgot to put something in there. That was like a reminder to them. Because to me, like that's where I feel like that's very inside baseball. And if this is what you do every day, you know exactly what that means. But I do this twice a month and I have no idea. Like that just doesn't make sense to
Too
me.
much geek speak?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
So for me, it's not conveying why are we doing this? We have a reason why we're doing this. And it's more than just land use goals and land use map is how I feel about it.
So that could be something like the future vision of the city. I don't know, could think of some other things like that.
I think a slide that talks about the actual vision should be your opening slide. Like, what do we want out of this general plan and why we're doing this, and kind of show it more as when they walk in the room.
I think it's the next one, isn't it?
Yeah, so in other words, we maybe could delete this slide. We do have the next couple that talk about some of the goals and what we're trying to do.
We had we had the big vision map from last year's process. Would you like to see that again? Is that?
I don't mind reminding everybody that visual. In other words, that we're still talking about, this is not new.
Yeah.
We're still talking about this area. It might be drilled into what is central, help us understand what is central Heber
Okay.
first.
Are you talking about the vision map that comes from the general plan?
So it's the map, the whole poster, right?
And then to Tori's point, if you go to the next slide with a very simple mission statement, which is obviously on the wall here, and that's far from simple. If there's some way that you could give us a piece of that so we get the flavor of what the general.
Yeah, maybe that is just too general.
Yeah, I did think that the second slide was
I think we had
was this.
we had the big map in there at one point, but I think we decided to take it out.
Yeah, we took it out because it was really hard to read, and I think we felt that it was confusing.
It's the one with all the colors.
Yeah, and it was.
I found that one to be confusing and
Okay.
and
It's just
gonna get people off track, in my
kind
opinion.
of like too much on one map, right?
Well, the
On one
reason
poster.
the reason I put this slide in is I was anticipating that we were going to get people asking, "Why are you doing this? You're rushing," and I wanted people to know that what we've already gone through. Just to remind them that we've gone through a general plan update in 2023. We adopted the new general plan that we have. Was that 2020? So I didn't even mention that here. But the key thing is that we have old policies that are in place that initially were put in place in 1972. And yes, we did update them a couple years ago, but they still don't comply with the vision of the general plan. And so the idea is to convey to people that why we are doing this is we are trying to make our zoning ordinance match the vision of our general plan.
Then say that.
Okay. Do you have an easy, we'll have to think of a better way to say that, but.
Yeah, I think we can work with that one and make that a little more clear, I
I
think.
guess that goes back to the question that I think we're asking, which is, what do you want us to understand on this slide?
Just what I said there.
Just what you said, right?
Yeah.
So I think, to Tori's point, let's break it down. It's okay if it's a couple slides, but in the mapping, it could be one diagram with these things sort of isolated.
Okay. So there's, 2 or 3 points that we could whittle this down to.
Yeah. Could I just interrupt for a second? Are you guys going to be here for this part of the meeting?
That's why they're here. Yeah.
Just
So
checking.
these gentlemen are,
Just want to make sure we're
they're
okay.
kind of interested in the flag lot part
I
is what they told me
see.
earlier. So,
Okay.
so they kind of want to see if they can get some intel on that. So.
I just suddenly thought I had an old agenda. So.
Okay.
So we got some work here on the first slide.
Yeah.
Okay.
And do we want the vision poster is just too much, right?
I think so.
Okay, we won't throw that in. But the next one sort of gets at that anyway, but okay. So this just is trying to describe the two overlays with the map. And hopefully those are fairly straightforward descriptions.
Probably take out the words "the how."
Oh, and then
Yeah.
I struggled with, sorry, I'm just going to throw this in. We don't really go out to the high school. Let's go to 600 West. If you look at the map.
What do you mean, John?
Well,
You want-
the transition corridor along Midway goes out to 600 West.
Oh,
It's right there.
Yeah.
Oh, I see it. It's missing. Okay.
oh, we need to add wording about.
The hatching?
The purple doesn't quite
Purple
get
hatching
there.
doesn't, it stops at 500 West.
That's about 6.
Well, there's a reason for that, and so the reason, so the boundaries of this district, as we've chosen them, come from an existing overlay zone called used to be the cottage home. Cottage home. Then it was changed to neighborhood infill, and so this map represents that particular boundary that we established back in 2002. It was updated a couple of times. We can deviate and extend that further. It was just felt that that would be a good starting point.
But it's not, it doesn't go out to the high school.
Correct, it does not.
I just would change that to about 600 west or something.
Oh, so you're trying to
okay.
say it's going from 200 east to 600 west?
Yes.
Oh, in this first line right here.
I'm talking about the last line, sorry.
We're all talking about something different.
Yeah, sorry, where it
Connecting
says
westward along Midway Lane.
along
Oh.
Midway Lane to the new high school, which it just doesn't go that far.
Got it. So we got to change the last sentence.
That's something I noticed today.
Okay.
Well, and just PowerPoint 101, the more words you have, the more complicated it is for people to understand. So I was going to ask you to get rid of those bullet points.
Get rid of the bullet points?
Provide a lower intensity, flexible residential, blah, 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 blah. It's like, if you could do central neighborhood district as one slide, then go to the next slide and do the transition corridor. I realize there's a
Break it into
slide count
two.
issue, but then I'm going to go back, right, then go to the next slide.
Okay.
Go to the next slide. Then I have that kind of simplicity is my point.
So we need to simplify. Yeah, so this map is intended to be the overall
That
picture.
was fine with me. I've seen it.
We just
I
need to
should-
simplify the
words.
text. Okay.
And I recommend putting the two districts on two different slides.
I
Well, the-
agree.
Well, the reason that we wanted to kind of show the whole picture on this one,
Yeah.
just the broad overview, but we are definitely in the weeds too much maybe. So we just
I
kind
don't
of
even
want,
think you need the bullet points. You just put the two districts and then we get into what the bullet points
With the
are.
designation, 200 east-west to 600 east-west, 100 east, that I think we keep.
okay, so we don't even need to put,
Sentence that says provide blah, 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 or provide blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
should
I
go
think we
away.
can get rid of those.
so just eliminate all the text except for maybe the locations.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Yes. You got me nervous.
We do cover that later on, I think, too, right?
Okay.
Yeah, totally.
Think, well, go back to it. I don't think this, like 40 and Center Street and 100 South are well identified there. And if people are looking at that thing, I think you'd want to identify the main arteries.
Well, that's an existing graphic you're talking about.
Well, I know that, but I
Well,
mean,
we can change that. So if you want us to show Main Street and 100 South and Center
is that the
Street,
purpose? I mean,
sure.
I think it would help others to be able to put themselves in the
Yeah,
zone.
exactly, yeah.
You just have to make the word main bigger, right? And keep in mind, we're going to be standing in front of it. It's not going to be,
Well, it would be pretty easy to show the arterial and collector streets.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
Because I think you got, yeah, people coming in here that know,
I think it's a
they,
visual
they
thing.
can't read maps very easily, or they,
Yeah.
Don't want to turn it and get it the right direction.
Yeah. well, at least you have north going
yeah.
at the top.
Anyway, maybe we do need a north arrow even on that, right?
Okay.
That wouldn't be a bad idea.
Because they've already-
Had to put them on every drawing I ever did.
Yeah, yeah. Usually you see them. I mean, I guess I feel like we've looked at this so much, we pretty much know how it works, but I think labeling Main and labeling Midway.
Midway Lane and Center Street, I think, are going to be your biggest.
Be good. Yeah,
Okay.
those 3-4 things.
Thinking about, my wife would look at it and say, I don't understand this at all. Show me where I am.
Okay.
Okay, yep. Oh, maybe we have to have a "We Are Here" sign.
There you go.
Some people wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, and we're gonna go to the police station for this, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're right. I mean, we didn't need that other text because this covers all of that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's more depth. Maybe it's too much depth, but it is more depth.
So purpose. Trying to convey what the purpose is. Like we're losing commissioners.
No, I'm just talking about this in my head. I mean, the purpose of central overlay zone should be like slide number 2. And then the central overlay zone, the map in full map. And then we're breaking down the zones, because you have the central Heber neighborhood district in yellow, and then you have the purple one as the slide number 5. To me, I mean,
Change the order?
yeah.
Okay.
No, understand, yeah, we can do that. When we print these up, though, they're going to be on 24 by 36, so they're going to be kind of scattered around the room as best we can. So they're not, and so we can rearrange them even like that night. So, but yeah, if you want them in a different order on the PDF, we can certainly do that. So you're saying put the purpose as the second slide?
Yeah, because
okay,
seems it makes more sense to me. I don't know about anybody else. I mean, I teach a lot of people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, done? No problem.
I'm going
Okay. How about the
adjourn?
We have the new high school in there too. I'd be careful about that. Just don't want to show that that's that far.
Let's not piss them off with the chaws and then the reminder that the new high school is still coming.
Yeah. Hey,
Double whammy.
Phil, how are we on this one as far as being too verbose?
Well, on the central neighborhoods, I kind of get it. I think I'm more effective when I'm in bullet points. Like, for instance, when you say transition corridor district is established permit moderately intense mixture residential, the go-to there is moderate intensity residential commercial. Then TCD serves as transition area from C3 commercial zone westward, eastward Main Street to existing residential neighborhoods.
That might be too much, huh?
The point gets lost in the minutia.
Draft, but
no, I understand.
Oh
Just take it and cook it into bullet points with no more than 6 words for each bullet point. That's my rule.
I would eliminate the whole last sentence too. The district also serves as a connecting land use. I don't think that's necessary.
Connecting corridor?
I agree.
I just don't think you need any of that.
The map shows it good enough?
Yeah, and I don't think it matters to people. I don't think they care that that's why we did it.
And I think a lot of people are going to really focus on I think you're going to get a lot of, because I workshop a lot of this stuff with my neighborhood because we all live in older homes that are like at least 50 to 75. Mine will be 100 years old in 5 years. So I think a lot of people, if they can realize, I think you could, if you played to the historical building flexibility, what that means for their neighbors, if they can turn it into an Airbnb or they can turn it into.
That's coming in other slides.
Perfect. But yeah.
Okay.
So I'll take that back. I do think we need to say the district serves as a connecting land use from the C3 zone to the railroad and Southfields. And then maybe that's it from there. And I would eliminate the pictures because I think the pictures.
I would change land use to corridor, sorry. But because the overlay is not a land use, it's got a series of land uses, right? So to me, it's just a connecting corridor over there. So
that helps me a lot. If you could break down the definition of overlay zone before you get into applying it, I think that would help us understand what you're doing. So by example, when you say overlay zone, I'm reading that it's low intensity, I'm reading that, infill, and flexibility and historic, right? At least in terms of the CND. On the transition, I'm still sort of trying to understand how that fits into what an overlay is. How does overlay create transition? Transition from residential to commercial?
Yes.
that transition is from the Main Street area into the neighborhoods.
Right.
I'm trying to think if there's another way to put that.
Perhaps that's it, but making it that succinct at the front end. So then later on, I now can understand that oh, you mean downtown? Oh, you're teaching me. It's C3 commercial. And then you're also saying that what is infill options? And now we have a whole bunch of slides about infill options.
Yeah. Actually, after the C3, we ought to say something like downtown too, right?
Right.
Other folks won't understand that either. Okay, do you want something up front?
When you say corridor, what does that mean to you?
Corridor. Sorry.
It's a transit, it's a,
Well,
obviously,
they're
most of
both-
us think of corridors as a rectangle, so it's a
Long one, yeah. See, for me, the corridor is really the Midway Center Street one, and the other part is not so much of a corridor as just a transition area.
Okay. So the corridor gets us to Midway, right? It's a,
Yeah.
it's a way to get from Heber to Midway.
Our way, yep, okay, yep.
So that's helpful for me to understand what you're meaning by that. Because when you say corridor to most people in this application, they're going to go, "Ugh, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, that's what I would think of as a hallway. But I think it's just to Southfield Park. We don't want to say it all the way to Midway for sure. Railroad and Southfield Park. Because of the reach.
Okay, we're going to rephrase that
Great.
and go to bullet points if we can, okay?
But I like, to Greg's point, I like this slide on the front end a lot because it helps me define the words you're using so that later, when you apply them to a map, I understand what you're saying.
And maybe in that first slide that we had quite a few things, maybe we also need to talk about what is an overlay,
Thank you.
okay? Can do.
And overlay. Okay.
So I'm already pretty sure we're not having this meeting next week.
Agreed. Agreed. I think once we get this in place, though, I think it will fall into a logic sequence of events.
Yeah, because you got to realize there's time for Ryan Bunnell to do his thing and print these all up. And then we also have notices we got to get out in time so that you don't have, when did you get this last meeting? It was Thursday or Friday that people got them and then they got all crazy about how short a time period they had. So we want them to have enough time to get to the open house. So.
Whatever public's coming to this are not as energized as that public was.
You could also say
hope
that
they
there's
are.
going to be a cell tower in the middle of the central neighborhood. Yeah, okay.
Actually, it's preferred.
I hate to divert, but one time in West Valley, we actually put a bulldozer on the front of the little newsletter. And we had 500, 600 people show up to a room this size and had to move to the high school for the evening. And I'll tell you, that was no fun at all. Fortunately, that wasn't a staff suggestion. So.
This is slide number 4, and this is kind of where we start talking specifically about each one of these districts. So we show the yellow one on one page, the purple one on the next one.
And we'll add Main Street, Midway, Central, or Center.
I'm a little confused by what I'm doing with like what I like and don't like.
Tell us which one of those kinds of infill options you like or dislike.
Yeah, so we want people to put a green dot on which uses they like, red ones for which they dislike. So
The dots go on the map.
Yeah, just right next to the.
No, next to the words.
yeah, so they'd go in the words. So if somebody didn't like a flag lot, they would put a red dot there.
Which of these things do you like or not like in those zones, in those
We need to
areas?
reword that? Is that what you're
I
saying?
don't think you need this map there.
You don't need it?
Yeah, we absolutely do.
To show them what they're looking at.
They need to know where those things can go.
So we wanted to make the distinction between the two, what the different uses are. And so they see where those are appropriate or not appropriate.
All right, so what you're saying is everything that's highlighted, I can put one of those things
Those are
Possibly.
or all those.
options for the central neighborhoods. Okay? So
So I think if we're trying to make sure we're not confusing, we've got the words conditional and then maybe already loud. Maybe we need to clarify somehow what we mean by that. John,
Yeah, because the conditional thing is not very well understood either.
Well, if you've got someone coming into a workshop to do this, and they've just heard that they're changing, they want to do a zone change, a mass zone change, I guarantee you 90% of the people in Heber are not going to know anything about what that means.
On which thing?
On what conditional or already allowed. I don't
Okay.
even think people even know that internal and detached accessory dwellings are available to them.
I guess we were maybe trying to provide too much information here. We could just skip those conditional.
I think it still needs to be there. Instead of conditional, maybe you put in some circumstances. There's only so far back we can go to educate people before. That's the point of having the open house, is so that we can talk about it.
True.
I mean, we can't go back to the complete basics.
Yeah.
That's like a 5-part series.
True.
Is there a poster in the room that I can go get and understand? I can walk over to it and understand what you mean by these things, duplex.
Yes.
Yeah, that's coming up.
Yep.
Yeah.
So all of these will be in the room.
Flag lot, subordinate dwelling.
Area of that map.
Okay.
So they're voting, their green dot, red dot should probably be towards the end of their little. So
Well, but it's all going to be together.
I see what you're saying, but you probably shouldn't be able to make a red dot, green dot situation.
Or you've looked at the
Where you've looked at
alternative.
everything.
Yeah.
That's why I'm thinking you go from around,
Yeah.
and at the very end, you're like, oh, this is pretty awesome.
So
This
may-
is not. This is
So maybe this slide's not a red dot, green dot thing. It's just, here's
exactly,
what's
it's just the
allowed there.
information.
And then when they go to around the room and they get to this one, they can put dots
Where the
here.
dot should be.
You
This
can
is just
count it better
information.
this way
Yeah,
than on
you're
this, because
right.
there's no space on. If it's 24 by 36 or whatever, it's been a while since I've been in publishing, but I'm like, if it's that size and you have 300 or 400 people there, which I hope we could, you're not going to fit 200 or 300 dots on each one of those bullets.
It'll be really small dots.
Very small dots.
Yeah.
So we'll remove the
Very
dot
small rocks.
options on slide 4 and 5, and they're just going to be informational.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that makes sense. So that's sort of an intro to here's all these different
I'd like
alternatives.
to have all the information before I place my dot.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Sure.
why I asked.
Okay.
Yeah, we're probably asking too much at that point, so.
Well, you know it, to Tori's point, you are with it every day, we're not. So I'm going to want to know what all those things are before you ask me what I think about
I
them.
need sugar.
We've got slides for all of it, so that's good.
I think we had the green dots, red dot thing on the pictures before and switched it.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds good. We'll do that for the two. Yeah,
I've been working on this on the side.
I see.
yes.
I mean, you were all invited to participate.
But the only one, Tori was helpful in suggesting a few changes.
I asked if it was time for me to submit mine. I was told it's going to be at this agenda for this meeting, so I chose not to. So-
I knew you all wanted to talk about it, period. Yeah, that was another reason to postpone. Because, we were going to do that
Why
before.
am I not surprised that Tori's the only one that did the homework?
Well, Tori's the overachiever in the group. I just want that. to be
Tori has
clear.
her own agenda.
Yeah. You're talking clear and concise.
If I see that on
tonight.
Facebook tomorrow, I am coming after you.
Mayor.
Sounds good. Anyway, we were happy to get comments, and yes, we did want to talk about this in general with you all too, so.
Yeah, this is great. This is the kind of feedback I was hoping we'd get tonight. Thank you.
Okay.
So I'm
Someone's going to take dots and put it on the map. I guarantee it.
they
I
probably
can
will.
totally see some people doing that.
They probably will, but we'll remove that option from here, and I think it'll be more clear. But you're right, people probably still will.
Okay, so now we go through the different options, right? The infill options. And if you see that you think will scare people, bug people, what's a good word?
Subordinate.
Okay.
You struggled over that a while ago. I'm struggling with it right now.
We did change it from
Is that a state-
subordinate,
is that a-
detached,
Is that
accessory
state
dwelling
authorized,
unit.
that word?
What's that?
State authorized word? Oh,
Well, so helped us rename that last time because we originally had it as, and if you have a better idea, I mean, we can rename it something.
SADU. It was a SADU.
Sadadu or something. Yeah.
One more D, there was Subordinate dwelling, accessory dwelling, or subordinate detached
That's what it was.
accessory dwelling unit.
Yeah.
That was it. And
I-
it's really not an accessory dwelling unit, so
I like the
Move on.
subordinate dwelling unit. I think it's clean and clear, but if you have a better idea, I'm all ears.
So dots on flag lots. They're here for flag lots. Anyway, what's that?
Green dots.
Green dots, okay.
On the flag lots, right? Yeah.
We did find a little bit different situation. I think you told me this one's a Mill Creek one, right?
Yeah, on these slides, Tori had said, hey, we need better pictures. So this is actually in John's neighborhood. It's a flag lot, and this is actually the picture of that house and the house behind it. And so
I have a ton of those, and if you went on that field trip, you maybe saw some of them, but it's almost hard not to. If you can't get out and walk on the driveway, which you're not supposed to anyway, because it's private, but you can't get a real good feel for it. But the aerial, I think, shows it fairly well there.
Yeah, this is much better than the cartoon one that was there before.
Are we putting up on like any like setbacks?
Yes.
Like, will that be listed at the workshop, or is that for just our purposes?
We thought that kind of stuff would be in the weeds, but
We had a
it is
slide
in the
for it though,
ordinance.
didn't we?
What's that?
Didn't we have a separate slide for it?
I don't recall that.
Well, so what we're trying to do is summarize to the best of our ability
Okay, so this is a
code.
summation, not like all the technical stuff.
Right. So we do have the proposed code that we will have that we can give to people and say, okay, here's the summary, but now you're going to have to look at the details on your own time and come back with questions.
As long as I'm not confused later with something that looks similar. In other words, if it's uniquely what you're asking me to do, I don't need to know the setbacks then.
Okay. As long as the code will be
If it's
available
close
for
or
them.
similar to something else.
Yeah, I think we're going to have a pile of code, aren't we, John, to hand out at the workshop?
So it's either that or we do QR codes to someplace you're storing that draft. I don't know what you want to do these days, but I can tell you up in Ogden, we're doing QR codes.
QR code and the pictures.
I feel like we really need to have at least some papers there because I feel strongly that people are going to say, this is going to happen everywhere. And then we can go and go, no, look, these are the requirements. You cannot put an apartment building behind your house. The setbacks don't work. So whether it's one laminated one that we can all share or whether it's ones that can be passed out, I think it's really important that we show that, no, this can't just happen anywhere. There are a heap of requirements.
That will take people time to wade through that.
Which is fine. I just think that in some of the conversation, it just makes it really clear, really quickly, like, no, this isn't allowed everywhere. These are the requirements. And then they can wade through that on their own. And maybe that's accompanied by a QR code.
Or let me ask
You work with the public, don't you?
I'm on Facebook a lot. I don't know.
So if I see the rest of this deck, you're going to go through all the rest of the.
Okay, and we do have a slide about an 8.5 and every.
I know, I love that slide.
Okay.
I think it should be every other slide.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a big fear for people.
100%.
It is, I think, and
To Tori's point, if we can better understand everything about the flag lot when you're presenting the flag lot, then that would be helpful.
So you just have one slide for flag lots?
Not
one
more
slide for
flag lot, more
subordinate dwelling?
information later. I would. To
Still
your point,
funny.
if there's pertinent information about the flag lot that you want to tell me here, not more places later.
see, that's where I'm expecting Phil to go next to this one. And you're gonna be saying, hey, here's how the slide lot works.
I think we have to do it incrementally. Like you need to understand what a flag lot is first. And then when you have a meltdown that your neighbor is going to have a flag lot, then we talk about why your neighbor's not going to have a flag lot because their lot's too small.
Or where their house is, it just doesn't allow for a driveway.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm thinking we're gonna have some printed documents, we're gonna have some QR codes for those that like those things, so maybe both.
Yeah, I think we need to have printouts and QR code. Great big QR code and printouts.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
Okay. Subordinate ones there, if that's the right name. It kind of works, I think, and not a
So when you're
bad.
looking at this slide, like when you look at this slide, do you feel like that picture gives you a clear idea of what we're trying to convey?
Like my soul.
It's on a separate lot. That's probably the critical thing, is that it's how it is differentiated from an accessory dwelling unit,
Yeah.
is that it's on a separate lot. And it's differentiated from a flag lot because it doesn't have the pole. That's really,
I like the pop-out picture being different because before it was just the garage, which didn't make sense. But I just think we need some sort of like indicator that that little guy is what we're saying is that huge one in the picture. So if we keep these same photos, is there just some way to show that that is what's back there?
so just maybe a line connecting up to the lot down to the picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
No, it's interesting. We have the little in print or italics there. Just that little owner occupancy required. I feel like we ought to put in the separate lot with a permanent easement.
Yep.
Is that too much of weeds?
The
But
subordinate is separately platted, right?
yep, we're gonna have to go through the subdivision ordinance. As a flag lot, you would, but you wouldn't for an ADU.
Why is that?
Because an ADU is still owned by the owner. of
Oh,
the
gotcha.
lot,
Never
right?
mind. You just, yep,
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'm just gonna ask a question. So you're telling me the subordinate dwelling unit is basically an ADU on its own property, so, but the owner still has to own for those?
No.
Okay.
Separate ownership.
Okay.
I mean, could the owner own both? Never
So
thought
then-
about that, but they could, I guess.
Well, I guess my question comes back to owner occupancy is required on which? On the subordinate or just the existing? Okay.
Yeah, you can't buy a subordinate lot and then rent it out.
Okay, just
that's-
clarify for my understanding.
That's the concern that Farmington that came up with this really had, is that these might end up being investor homes instead of being affordable housing. Because that is part of the idea here, right? Is you get a small lot and a small house. And so maybe it's affordable, as opposed to a flag lot generally isn't. So that's part of the thought there. And that's something to remember for the argument of this particular poster. Okay, owner occupied, potentially affordable housing. And I don't think we'll know until some of those are built, but yeah, it seems like it could be, because it's subordinate.
So Tori, having spent more time on this, are you against this idea that there would be some bullet points in each of these types that give us more information?
No, I'm not against that. It's just, but where do you stop?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where it would be consistent. If I was looking at one to the next to the next, you give me some very basic bullet point, not sentences, maybe no more than like 3 words, or 4 words that would give me clear information about flag lots or about subordinate dwelling unit.
That's why these should be on 2 separate slides, so you can add your bullet points.
Could be.
Because
You could add a lot then.
Could be.
Here, we could just maybe try and do like
You have to
3 or
control-
so above the.
Too much information is gonna backfire. So I
Well, I'm
think,
wondering if owner occupancy may not even be required. Maybe, I mean, because the key question is, why is this any different from a flag lot or an accessory dwelling unit? Well, it's on its own lot and it's connected with an easement to the street.
And so flag lot, we would have to say separate lot and permanent driveway or something. I don't know.
Or lot connects to
I
the
think-
street.
yeah, but I'm gonna also say that owner occupancy is a big issue.
Is it? Okay.
For this
All right.
public.
You could just get rid of the picture on the bottom though, I think, and put that information there. I don't think that bottom picture is really adding
So you
value
would get rid of the
on the
photo?
flag lot.
Okay.
Just the overhead view, I think is, and then you could fit the other bullet points in the same area.
Actually, the one on the bottom right is ADU.
I was gonna say,
So-
is it really connected to that?
That's okay.
I know, I Googled to try to find something that made sense and I couldn't find anything.
I've
Yeah,
got
this is
a,
a new concept. You're not going to find anything on Google.
yeah.
We're innovative, cutting edge.
It's almost like, flashcards. There's a picture of a flag lot, and then there's bullet points you need me to
bullet points.
remember.
Yeah.
Next,
That's fair.
bullet point information.
Yeah.
Isn't it
More posters, but maybe we group the infill stuff together. sort of.
I think if we walk away with has a really good idea what infill's about, whether they like it or not, that would be great.
Yeah, that's the objective.
Isn't it more a subordinate lot than a dwelling? I mean, subordinate lot dwelling or? I don't-
It's a lot with a dwelling.
I think it's both, Robert, in the sense that number one, you don't want a great big house back there. Subordinate in that respect, because it's probably going to be smaller, but also subordinate to the main lot because it does not have street frontage. It's hidden. And so in that respect, it's subordinate and kind of hidden.
The lot and the dwelling unit.
Yeah, I think so.
But they might not get it because it's just.
We'll put separate lot as one of the bullet points, okay?
Otherwise, it's like an ADU.
Yeah, it strikes me as basically an ADU on a separate lot, but it's not accessory anymore because it's a separate lot. That seemed a little confusing, but that is the basic idea. Okay, so 2 slides there. Let's go on to the next one. There's duplexes. We got some duplexes. Are there any bullet points we ought to toss in for those?
We got too many pictures. We need more. You want to get rid of the cartoon.
I think the cartoon tells me a lot more than anything.
I
like
think
the
so
cartoon.
too.
Okay.
I always like the cartoons.
Bugs Bunny?
It's a graphic. It's not a
Graphic,
cartoon.
there you go. Who called it the cartoon earlier?
Me.
Oh.
But no, but the one was a cartoon for the flag lot. It was weird. It was different than this.
It wasn't that good, yeah.
If we're going to do bullet points on the other ones, then I think we need to do bullet points on these, but I think we could just eliminate one of the photos and in my opinion, the lower left one, because that looks like townhomes.
This one right there?
Yeah, I think those are townhomes, not a duplex, but I could be wrong. And then just put a couple of points there.
And I don't think that Senator building falls into a mansion style home. Everybody's gonna look at it and say, hey, it's a bed and breakfast.
I agree with you on that.
But it used to be a mansion style home.
But they didn't know that.
That's why we're here to share that with them.
Which one is that, sorry?
The
Bottom
lower
right.
right.
It is now, okay. I was gonna see if it had 2 doors facing the street, which is not what we're saying for those.
So do you want that house disappeared then?
Appear?
I don't.
You want me to delete it?
We could put a few bullets in there, I guess, right?
Everybody will know what it is, and they're gonna say, wait a minute, is a bed and breakfast a mansion style home?
Okay.
Or,
Yeah,
you know,
that has brought up a lot of controversy.
Well, we'll toss a few bullets in there from the ordinance.
My great-great-grandpa built that.
Did a good job.
Yeah, thank you. Yep.
Looking house.
Hey.
Okay, moving on. Got houses. Couple different configurations above there.
So the why I kind of went down this rabbit hole was because I didn't like any of the photos. And I got to this point and got tired and stopped being in new photos. But I didn't like the other photos because I didn't think they represented what we actually are going to allow. I thought they were all too big and too high density looking. I feel the same way about these two. But what are your guys' thoughts? Like when you see those townhouses, is that something that you go, I can't imagine having those in my neighborhood? Or do you go, okay, that's reasonable. Now I understand.
I think that you'll get some, because most residential areas downtown is 35 feet away.
That's what this code is all about, 35 feet height, period.
Well, I'm not opposed to the one on the left, but the one on the right just doesn't throw me.
Oh, the one with the blue and the red's good. The other one is
It's my aesthetics.
When you say that, are you talking about the all three pictures?
Townhouses?
No, the townhouses.
Two bottom ones on the left.
I don't really care for either of them. I think the one on the left looks big as well. And we just don't really have anything that would be elevated like that, which is the only thing that makes it look tall.
We don't have any townhouses within Heber right now that we could use on our own slides.
Well, so we do, but so we have the ones we do have. Understand, so take Muirfield example. Those have front-loaded garages, and I do not recommend we ever do front-loaded townhomes because in Muirfield there's nowhere to park because the entire street is nothing but driveway, and people have the illusion that the street is too narrow, and that's just not the case. And then, so there's problems with parking, there's problems with plowing. So I'm an advocate for rear-loaded, alley-loaded, or side-loaded townhomes that don't have the driveways onto the street.
Or what's kind of by Walmart.
Yeah, that's closer. Yeah, I know that architecture doesn't appeal to everybody, but that's the idea. Yep.
And I think those are in more than a 4 cluster as well.
Yeah.
I'm fine with these. I Googled and I couldn't find anything that was way better, but
This is me taking several hours to try to find some. The one on the right is in Riverwoods, Jacob Pictures. The one on the left is one I found on an infill website. I can't remember what city it came from. Certainly open to different pictures. They're just kind of hard to find exactly what we want. So.
yeah, and my argument was like people take things very literally, so we need to be careful about what we're showing.
That's very true.
Just put a disclaimer at the bottom. This is for
All the ones that I found that
educational
are
purposes only.
4 or smaller were front load garages, so that was tough. But anyway, we don't have to dwell on this, but that was just kind of where I was.
What is it you don't like about the townhome on the right?
Me or Robert?
Old fashioned and kind of,
Eric.
yeah.
The bow front and the stairs going up and.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are there any bullet points you would like to cover in that?
I think the rear facing garages on the limit of 4 is
Okay.
probably a good thing to mention.
I think that makes sense.
What was it?
Garages.
For sure, the limit of 4 and the rear garages.
Yeah, 4 attached.
The limit of 4 in a building, and then rear load
Garages.
garage.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. Courtyards.
We did try to come back with some different pictures for these.
I like these better.
Yeah.
These are great pictures.
I love this style of thing. I love it.
So I had put in some new pictures that were 2-story. Certainly you can do courtyards that are 20 stories if you're in Chicago, which is not what we're talking about. These are not 35 feet. The ones I showed that we took out, that Tori asked to be removed, were 35 feet. And so I just, if
3-story or 4-story?
So I guess my point is if you don't like the looks of a 2-story courtyard apartment, do we need to limit height at some differently for these?
My bigger issue with the ones that were in there is they just didn't match the style.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
They looked very East Coast.
Yeah, these are also very difficult and challenging to find photos for.
Yeah.
So.
Salt Lake, you don't find them in Salt Lake City?
Well, the one from the top right is from Salt Lake.
Yeah.
That's not 2-story.
Yeah.
I had a friend that lived there. Be nice.
There's some nice ones, I think.
I did have a friend that lived in
I
that
think
same.
the height is
that-
fine.
yeah.
It's just, it was hard to find a photo that didn't look very overwhelming.
And the way that chapter is put together, a section, is the higher they are, the further apart they are too. So, okay.
That's a good point. Okay.
Maybe
Any
that's a
changes
bullet.
you want on this then, or bullet points, or is this?
Let's try the next one.
Okay.
I think the courtyard's the one you're gonna get the biggest pushback on.
So, yeah, we obviously made a lot of changes to these last 2 or 3 slides. We are getting close. We're almost there. But this is kind of where we landed as we're trying to figure out what to do with all this text.
Probably do need to create some more space there if we can for the dots, I
Yeah,
suppose.
that's what I was just gonna say, between the
Okay, slide 9, more space for dots.
Your kerning's a little long. I'm kidding.
Oh, with the,
It's a technical term.
I know.
Yep.
Is that the spacing underneath?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I'll have them fix that.
You can buy me. You're good.
Kerning.
I think so.
Okay. Okay. Is that the question that you want to ask? Do you support design criteria for multifamily buildings?
As long as it's clear what we're talking about, then I think it's a valid question.
Okay.
I think that's
Or you
where a
could do,
QR
do you
code would be
think-
good right there, so they can understand it more.
Maybe that's not quite the right question.
That's kind of what I'm thinking, because most
Yeah.
people,
Because we're asking them to weigh in on these features, right? And it's not just, do you generally support them? What's that?
oh yeah, pick your favorite design criteria for
Yeah,
multifamily.
Or you could do, would you like design criteria for multifamily buildings? And then they have all the options there, which lets them, reaffirms them that we are looking at options to make them look not like crap.
Good night.
Yeah.
See ya.
Because I think that's been one of the biggest things we've heard from the community, or like people drive past. Well, that thing down in Salem, that the row houses, I call them the row houses, they all look alike. There's no identification. There's no differentiation to them. They all look like a contractor just took dumped down a road. Maybe instead of do you support design criteria for multifamily building, it says would you support, or do something like that, a little bit more engaging.
These are most important, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay.
They could.
Yeah, I think that's a good.
Yeah.
Or design criteria for
Yeah.
buildings, just in general.
Yeah. Do you support? Yeah.
I mean, really.
The most important design elements, or
I don't think which is the most important is
Okay.
necessarily, because you're gonna get the 35 foot's gonna be like, even though that's already the code now, people are gonna have that's gonna be the last
What
one.
if you just said what design elements are important to you?
Yeah.
You just said,
Yeah. And then they can
And then-
adopt the individual item.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're really not asking, should we or shouldn't we have
Yeah,
any, right?
exactly.
We're asking, what are the most important ones here? Yeah, okay.
As long as my
That's good.
sweetheart's there, that's all.
We
that
don't even have a
matters.
picture.
is there any buzzwords on there that are going to terrify people or convey the wrong message? No? Okay.
Go back, Baton Wood. Board and Baton Wood siding. The more people, every know what I mean? Yeah.
I know. Isn't it Hardy board?
Can be.
Terrible. It's terrible upkeep for
Batten or
Gordon
Hard?
Batten is.
Unless it's hardy plank,
terrible.
it is much more difficult.
It's the Hardy board or the
Got to
vinyl.
paint it.
But if it's just regular board and batten,
Wow, vinyl.
well, gosh, every year you're fixing it.
But you
I
see
would
that
use
in
hardy
older
board 'cause
houses
it's
and
got
in
that
the
concrete
so-called
element
farmhouse
to it.
style too. Yeah,
Vinyl board and batten.
yeah.
You want us to put hardy board then, or
I
no?
don't think people know.
No. Okay.
Maybe you could leave the word
Let
wood
it
out of there,
go.
right?
I'm falling apart.
Wood and batten
Continue.
siding, just take the wood out.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is some great looking vinyl that looks pretty good that way, but it's also better, I think, as hardy plank, then you don't have to paint it. Okay,
Okay.
moving on. And then we have some,
Use buildings.
yeah.
Mm.
So is
I
that,
think just same thing, just change the question to design criteria is important to you.
or mixed, for commercial and mixed use buildings, okay. Yeah, what design criteria is.
And I
important.
have heard some scuttlebutt about the first floor commercial use and then apartments above. Some people are really raking the city over the coals about the developments down by Walmart.
What are they?
The commercial space is empty.
So that's choice.
Yeah. And that's what I try to explain to community members that have come up to me. And I'm like,
The two of the spaces on the west side that are
Yeah.
owned by different people are full of insurance
Yep.
and then I think a dance studio.
Yep.
The one on the directions, let's see, the northeast corner, that one is owned, not that it matters where
Yeah.
it's from, but I know the family and it's just, I can't explain why it's empty. It's
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah.
No parking.
Well, there's parking, but they bought it, but they, by choice, have not put anything in there. I mean, that's their choice.
Right. Because I know that's been a concern that, I mean, I had a conversation yesterday with one of my neighbors, lives 2 doors down. She's like, what are we going to do when if they do build all this infill and they have, these 3-story buildings with commercial on bottom and that's empty and there's people living above them. Like,
So the answer there is, of course, that's going to happen on occasion. It happens everywhere, like even with houses, unfortunately. But when people are doing commercial, most of them are going to be very cautious and careful to make sure they've done their market study.
Yeah.
Because we're not demanding commercial that they do a mixed use. We're just saying you could do it.
Yeah.
And so somebody's going to say, okay, is there a market condition where commercial is going to work here, a mixed use building? And in a lot of cases, no, it is not. In some cases, it'll be the exception, not the rule, that it works.
I'm all for mixed use. I'm all for getting the max potential out of a building with the least amount of footprint.
Seems to work best where there is a fair amount of density all around, where it's a very walkable neighborhood. But there's an awful lot out there that are vacant.
On a street where you've got mixed houses and stuff is like.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be. There's an option that Murray used where they actually allow the residential, but you create the space on the first floor that could be converted to commercial.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those places are 20 years old and not one of them's been converted to commercial. So anyway, just an interesting debate out there. Yeah, maybe that one too. Okay, we'll change the question and try and make room for dots. So here we go with a commercial. What's that?
I was waiting for this guy to show up.
It's here, even if you can't read the print from here.
It's me, Mario.
But it does give you all the features. Yeah. And then we did have a different question for this. Which design features do you like the most? It's pretty simple. And again, remember, this is just the transition corridor district, right? And I think that's important with some of these too, is that we make that distinction between the two areas, talking with folks. Okay, there's a lot there on that.
Is brick your only choice?
Well, she's a brick.
No, your choices really are going to be very similar to the ones that you have here.
I think people are going to react to that. They're
Okay.
going to react to it being brick more than they're going to react to the rest of what you're asking them.
Do we actually say something about the brick on that? Sorry.
We don't want it to look like crap.
No,
Take pride.
we don't.
Haven't we decided that that's what our look is?
I
Not yet.
I don't like vinyl siding, and
Vinyl siding's not allowed anymore.
I like brick. I do.
I'm not suggesting I don't like it. I'm just asking that people do respond to that. And, okay.
I think stucco could
If
be
that's the
tasteful.
direction, we should probably keep pushing.
Yeah.
Well, if people hate it, they can let us know. I hate brick.
Yeah, this one just features not.
Material,
Oh, gotcha.
yeah.
So are we good as is on this one then?
But remember, we were going to change that title also, right? Anatomy of a Main Street building? Yeah. Sorry. Just, commercial building or something. Yeah, because we're not talking about Main Street here, right? This is off Main. So, okay.
Plus Carl Malone won't build
It
it.
should be anatomy of a commercial building.
We just delete that title and just let the title of the slide be the title of.
Say, what do you think about?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll delete anatomy of a Main Street building.
Good idea. Okay, next one.
I think this one is going to be one that might be the biggest pushback of all.
Think so? Okay.
So you'll be in front of this, right?
I could. 2 reasons. Parking and noise, but we do talk about it, that it's for low impact. I'm so like low impact, like my knees. Like low impact, but I'm like, we also talk about it can be a bed and breakfast. I think a restaurant, bakery. I think what we need to focus on for this, and I think the bullet points are perfect, but the verbiage that needs to go along with this is that it is to help increase people, to prevent people from tearing down historic buildings, to be able to put another purpose in them, to be able to keep that historical character of Heber alive and well in a thriving business.
So we need to ask the question, do you support having additional uses like this list in order to make it so that people can afford to keep these historic homes?
And your angle is this can and will help us keep the character of Heber still alive with a thriving business. And they could choose, real estate offices, bakeries, a coffee shop, because this is what I'm super excited about for me, because my house does qualify for this is. So that excites me a lot. But I think selling it, because you have some of the historical homes that are a little bit farther out, and people, I know that when I moved into my house, if it wasn't for Frank Pizza Guy, can't remember his last name. If it wasn't for Frank, because I did run my business for a year.
Longer than that.
2 years. Because Frank was working on it when I moved into my house. And then now I can have the business there at my house. But I would love to be able to have somewhat of like a little nursery or something there where it's very niche, very boutique. But there are people that would come in and buy these houses to be able to do that.
Yeah. So we we never really say what our purpose is anywhere in here for this one. So we need to have at least a one-liner on that. Yeah. Okay. And maybe the photos are smaller so we have more room for dots.
We could eliminate a couple pictures.
Hoping you get a concussion.
Yeah, maybe we only need 2.
One picture, if it's all about historic, just one historic home and then make
All right.
room for dots.
So which one do you like the best?
Not the bottom left.
I like the top left one.
Bottom left turns me off completely.
Okay.
Noted.
Okay. The top right one looks like a fraternity to me. My fraternity.
House.
I was in a fraternity that looked like that. So.
Sorry. Did remind me of Animal House.
I like it.
Don't we have a house here in Heber? We could just throw one of our own on there.
The one that we
They're all
have
from
is
Heber,
down by Lane Lithgow, those 4 bungalows that we could take a picture of. You wanted me to do that?
Where?
So just south of the park, you've got the knife place, the coffee place, Lane Lithgow.
Oh yeah, those are all historical homes.
The only problem is those are like technically in the commercial zone, and that's why I didn't put them in here, because I was worried that might confuse people. However, the bottom right one came from American Fork or Lehigh, I
know that place.
Isn't Water from the Spoon or Water from the Moon a historical building?
Probably.
And that's not an industrial, is it?
That one's zone commercial.
Oh,
My favorite
God.
ones actually are the 4 bungalows that I just mentioned.
Yeah, I don't
Those
think
are
it
huge.
matters.
It's quintessential what Heber's Main Street used to look like until Carl Malone.
I don't think it matters that they're on Main Street. I think what's more important is exhibiting what we mean by that.
Yeah. What they could be repurposed as.
It's a historical home being repurposed. I don't know
Yeah.
that anybody lives in those, however.
Lane
but-
and Laurie live in the basement of the last one, if I remember correctly.
So take a picture of Lane's shop there.
Now, all 4 of them.
Okay.
Because she used to have a candy shop upstairs. And then she had, it's the last house. Yeah. So you've got the coffee place, then I think a tutoring place, knife place, and the last one that has has a bridge that goes over a little. Oh yeah, that is that. That whole thing I think shows people that I'm like, even though it is on Main Street, and I get that, I get people will be like, it's on Main Street, but no, this is to
The only difference though is that these are supposed to be owner occupied.
businesses.
Yeah. Well,
Maybe does that say it on there?
No.
Not all of them. Remember, we have a couple where it's just recommended or something like that. Because like a restaurant.
I'm just
might
gonna
not
live
work.
in the back building.
But I would think on the diagonal, the one on the upper left, the one on the bottom right, they're both businesses clearly. And let's get rid of the other 2 and have room for dots.
You don't want to include bungalow from Heber then? We'll just-
You got shot down, man. Sorry, Tony.
Okay. So we're keeping the
I fought.
upper left and bottom right. Okay.
Upper left, bottom right.
Okay.
I think maybe mentioning that people
Boring.
live on site might be a good idea to quell the fears of
Yeah.
people thinking that all of a sudden businesses are going to be in their neighborhood. Like, but someone's also going to be living there. Do you think that matters?
So we have the chart in that draft, right, that has the column that talks about recommended or required.
Yeah, I'm
But
fine
maybe
with it.
this
I'm
one
good
gets
with
the QR code that gets you right there to the draft.
Have we braced the topic of lighting on these?
Yes.
Okay. Just making sure it's covered there.
Do we want people to be able to put red dots though on some of these though, if they don't like them?
Let's keep it.
Well, the other ones.
The only one though, the red dots.
Yeah, this is the only one that doesn't have red dots.
Some red dots,
Red light.
whatever. Because maybe they don't think the restaurant and bakery and coffee shop makes any sense, right? Maybe that's just too much. So that'd be good.
A lot of people might not want daycare because it'll bring too much traffic or noise and stuff like that. So.
Maybe they only want tattoo parlors and massage places. What?
Off Main Street.
Body art.
Or
Body art.
Oh, is that the polite name now?
I was mentioning this to the guys at work and they're like, oh, just like, you could have like a massage place in your house. I'm like,
In the next public.
No.
meetings,
in fact, not.
In the next public meeting, we're expecting demonstrations.
All right.
That would be
Yeah, get off
funny.
topic.
And Tori's favorite slide.
Okay, let's see what we are worried about. So this one is a result of talking with Tori and talking with Ryan. We all, and, we just kind of went, we just sort of said,
Working on this all week.
well, we just decided, let's hit this head on. How's that? Okay. Tori brought it up. Ryan and Tony and I just went, let's get a slide. Let's have a poster on it. So, I tell you, there's a few buzzwords in here that do worry me a little bit, but I'll just go through. So ordinance standards limit the ability to redevelop. Do we want to use the word redevelop?
Rejuvenate.
Rejuvenate? Is there another word that comes to mind? I've just,
You are one lucky bug.
You say limit the ability to redevelop. What do you mean by that?
All right, I have to pee now.
so the issue that we think we're hearing is that people will think this is going to happen everywhere. Every single lot's going to change. And it's yeah. That issue is trying to lead us to these kind of things that we think will make it not happen everywhere, period. So limit the ability to, but redevelop, I think, is a word that would worry people, for me. We're not redeveloping necessarily, we're
Ordinance standards will be limited.
we'll limit options on your property.
That is a bad term. I was going to recommend that you might say control. So ordinance standards control redevelopment.
Okay, and I'm still struggling with redevelopment somehow.
Or then control growth. Now,
Ordinance standards limit, or sorry, not limit, but
limit says that it's out of bounds and you're in trouble, danger. You need to do something about it. It's a trouble, it's a problem.
That's the point, though.
But is it?
We want them to know that there are strong limitations.
Do you really? As opposed to, because then you're telling them they're in trouble. What about you want to be able to do things easy, slow, and for the good of everybody? If you're trying to communicate that and use the word limit, I don't believe you.
okay.
Limit is a word that portrays fear.
I feel like if I'm worried that my neighbor's gonna put an apartment building in my backyard and I see the word limit, I go, he's limited, he can't do that. Now I'm not worried. I'm not fearing now that he's gonna do that because he's limited.
It starts with you fearing your neighbor.
Well, that's why we're here. Everyone's fearing this change. Yes.
Why?
I think control is a buzzword that sets people off.
Yeah. What about just reduce? Reduce the potential for every lot or something like that? Reduce the ability for,
Why don't we just get rid of that first one altogether?
How about something like infill toolkit, ordinance standards, size of lot size.
so we got a bunch of that in there. So maybe let's,
Simple this and make it like positive that you're creating an infill toolkit.
Infill will not occur all at once and will not occur everywhere because many lots are too small, too narrow, or have too small of a rear yard. Some existing homes are located in an area that limits
So
access.
you've experienced people that really are fearful of this.
Oh, 100 only. I haven't experienced anything else.
So I also am going to anticipate more extreme positions. There are going to be people who believe that the city is condemning or going to buy their property and bulldoze it and turn it into all these other uses. I know because I've experienced this. Senior citizens in particular are concerned that they're going to be forced out of their homes.
What if we just put development standards?
My political opponent used this against me my
easy.
whole entire campaign. And someone who thinks they're going to be my political opponent again is using it right now. It's on social media, but it was also in our debates. Like, it was
Duh.
And that's why I thought this was important too, because what people are either thinking or being told is that if this passes, yeah, there's some magic force that's going to come through and do this to every lot.
Yeah.
And those are the more extreme for sure, but there's still people who are like, well, my neighbor next door has a big lot. Does that mean they're going to do that in their backyard?
Mm-hmm.
And what a big lot is to some people versus others.
Mm-hmm.
I've had zero positive interaction about this. But all of the fears are not relevant to what we're actually trying to do.
yeah. So, okay, let's skip the first bullet. How's that? Start with that one. Many lots are too small, too
So
narrow.
we're deleting the first bullet? Is that what I said?
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe that just confuses things or it's too controlling or something.
Maybe you could do just development standards. You've got standards in your development.
Yeah,
It's simple, it's clear. You're not talking about limit, control, or anything like that. You're just development standards.
Just say the development standards.
No, I'm
Okay.
just saying development standards and at that.
Okay.
And then people can ask those questions. So what are the development standards?
Funny that you ask. Here you
There
go.
you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Scan that
Okay.
QR code.
Here's a QR code. Here's all the lists.
Don't you think the first bullet point is just summarizing all the next bullet points?
Sort of.
In a way, yeah, good point.
Okay.
The question's wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe the question is asking too much question at one time.
Yeah.
Well, okay. What do you think about the rest of those? Existing homes or where the home's located just doesn't create any opportunities. Some just don't want to, right? I mean, to me, that's a fairly basic
Are
thing.
you
that-
advocating that the C, what's it called? The
Jaws.
The CHAZ is going to create solutions to these concerns?
No, we're anticipating that people are gonna, the concern they're having is, oh, my whole neighborhood is gonna turn into
Townhomes.
and it's gonna happen tomorrow. And so what we're trying to do is calm their fears that no, you still are retaining the choice as a property owner. Nobody's taking that away from you or from anybody. And the only reason that anything will be built is if the property owners decide that's gonna happen, which means that oftentimes it may not happen. And some lots just aren't in a condition to be able to be built.
Yeah.
You ought to probably put up right up front there, it's an owner choice.
I was gonna say, I think we should turn the last bullet point into 2 bullet points and put property owner decisions will determine as the very first one.
And then, yeah, maybe just owner choice after that too. Yeah.
Well, because
Okay.
it has been the concern that they're going to have condemn or eminent domain, or they're just going to come in and just bulldoze it, and it's like that's not what we're trying to do here. We're actually trying to make your property more valuable for you. Like we're trying to give you benefits.
And the base zone of R2 and R3 is still going to apply, right? So
Probably put that in there too,
Yeah, I was
right?
actually just gonna ask you that because I wasn't 100% sure on that. We're not actually changing these areas to commercially zoned, so their zoning isn't actually changing. I think that is really important. I've heard that from a couple of people
Yeah.
in reference to property taxes.
this just adds options for people.
I think that's a really important one.
Okay.
Okay.
And maybe that's to go back to what an overlay is. It's not necessarily a zone change per se, correct?
Right. Just creating options.
Overlay that it adds new options.
It's an overlay zone to create more options for downtown opportunities for residents and businesses alike. Write that down. That's good.
That was real good.
Robin's got it.
I get one good thing a day, guys. Ride the wave.
That was it.
That's all you got.
Don't ask me.
All we got.
No, really, don't ask me to
Don't
repeat
ask me to
it.
repeat it.
You got that down, right?
How do you feel about it?
What would you like us to do, Commission? Do you want us to make these changes, come back? Do you want us to email? Do you want us to come up with a schedule and email you? Or do you want us
If we need to streamline it, email it to us and we can review it. We don't have to bring it. Do we need to bring it back to a meeting? If it helps out, poor John.
I don't think so, but
He just wants to drive home.
I don't always have to show up, but yeah,
it's nice to
I
see
think
your
we can do it
face.
as an email thing once we do the cleaner versions. Sure.
come up with a new schedule as
I
well?
think sending us an email with this deck is.
Yeah.
We know that from now on, Tori will be pressuring you all to provide.
She strong arms all of us. It's quite
See how
rude.
effective that was?
Obviously, she's behind the scenes and
Anyway, let's try that.
That's why we had this meeting.
Let's try that. And then Tony and I can look at the schedule and try and add that to the email too. Okay, because I just think next week's out.
Next week's out, yeah. No question.
Okay. calendar.
This is a workshop, right? Yep. Open house. Okay.
The notification for the open house doesn't have a time limit. It's the notification for the public hearing. Of course, we want to give people plenty of time, but the one that legally requires a certain amount of time is the hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to have the public hearing, but we're trying to get the information so that people are somewhat informed before they come in and yell at us all, right?
Are you saying that? Does this mean I can put a cell tower in my backyard?
Only if you get the MDA.
Hey, I'm going to talk to you tomorrow. I'm kidding.
We are still online.
I know.
Okay.
It's $800.
So we were thinking about a Wednesday night.
That's it?
What's the 19th look like for you? What do you think? Oh, sorry. Look, I have this paper thing. I know, that's sad. I said maybe 19th. That'd be 2 weeks after the 5th one that we were talking about. That would give us, I think,
What's the notice you need to give on that?
10 days prior to the public hearing.
10 calendar or business?
Calendar.
and that would push us to your first meeting in April. Is that on the?
Notice on Friday the 7th.
But not, the open house doesn't need a particular date, but it just needs to be out in time for people to show up.
So if we did the 19th as an open house, we don't need to send the notice out 10 days before that. We just need something reasonable, because we do want people to attend that. Is a week reasonable? A week before?
I think 7 days.
Okay. So we could send notice out the 12th.
And they're through the mail.
This is March. Yeah.
The notices are through mail, right?
And this is going to be here or at the public safety.
Public safety.
Hopefully, yeah.
Greg brings up a really good point. Can they, with you're mailing this out, correct?
Yes.
But can they just do like on top of that? Because didn't we have we all got a call for the late start of school?
Yeah, can Heber City pushes out
Or is it
notices all the
it's
time
based on address
on their email?
It's based on address.
Addresses.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
we do have to send it to the owner.
gotcha.
Oh yeah.
Well, I don't have a kid, and I would know that school is 2 hours off.
Would you want to have a public hearing on the 25th? Are you meeting on the 25th?
Yep, that's planning commission. Yep, 25th.
Yeah.
What's that again?
Go for the open house on the 19th on a way.
Yeah.
And then the public hearing on the 25th. It's a little tight if we have, well, I mean, you're not making a decision that night, right?
That gives us a month from now to recuperate from this public hearing.
Yeah, and I think that what we were trying to do was get the open house date on the,
Card.
Card.
Yeah, the notice. Yep. Yep.
is there an interlocal meeting on the 19th? I don't think
Interlocal
so.
meeting.
When's the next interlocal meeting? It goes in April.
It might be. Okay,
March is too early.
you're right.
Because it's quarterly.
Early was January, then April.
I was thinking March, 3rd month, but it's in the 4th. Yep.
So with a little luck, then we would have a maybe decision on April 8th, and it goes up to the council after that. Sound like fun?
Let's try for that.
Yeah, fun. That's the word I'd use.
And then, so council is what day, John?
City council, I'm not sure after that, but the decision would be on the 8th of April, and it could go to the council later in the month there, if that works. We had down in one of our previous schedules, the next week, the 15th.
We do a work meeting with council and just
That would be
report.
better.
Yeah.
Could we do a combined meeting of the planning commission and the city council on this?
Or the
Well, that is a 5-week
15th?
month that has an extra, so the 5th week is extra where we don't meet. We could do something at the end of
We
April.
could present of our process in person.
I think that'd be very heartfelt.
And when are you thinking of that?
Whenever Whatever you can make it happen.
So if you did it the 8th, made a
We get to
recommendation
speak
on.
with authority to our council.
I love authority.
So the 15th is a pretty quick turnaround, but if we don't do it then we are waiting till May 6th, which is the next council meeting. Which means.
Let's review. The amount of, how much time are we giving ourselves between the open house?
A week and a day,
Okay,
or
so-
less than a week.
6 days.
Yeah.
Are we gonna be able to assimilate feedback?
So I think it'd be up to Tony and I and all of us to provide any kind of comments you got from that night. You want to
Next day.
relay them to us, and then we have to look at the dots. That's the way it goes. You were going to say that, right?
Well, I mean, honestly, the dots, I don't think are going to be the best. Well, they're going to be somewhat helpful, but people are going to go to this, they're going to the workshop, and they're going to get a general sense of what we're talking about. And they're going to say, man, I hate that idea, or I love that. They're going to go home and read the code, hopefully, and then come back to the public hearing and say, on page 12, you're talking about this concept that I just don't like. I mean, in the ideal world, that's the kind of feedback we would get is, I will support this concept if you'll make it all brick. You know, awesome, thanks for the comment.
Maybe we'll have 26 emails again.
So question, have we ever asked and gotten feedback after or during an open house by email?
It's possible.
After the public hearing?
After the open house, before the public
Yeah,
hearing.
that'd be one I'd suggest asking Mark or Jeremy. I'm sort of thinking, once you have the public hearing, the comments done, but that would be
After the house.
in between the open house and the hearing, sure. Yeah.
Because if we invite that, we encourage that,
Yeah.
I think people will be more willing to take things away
Mm-hmm.
and then write us an opinion.
Yeah. And
They don't feel like they have to come to the hearing.
Tell you the truth.
Yeah, okay.
And if you have those emails, just like you had tonight, you read them all. Did you read them out loud, or how'd that
QR
work?
code.
We were not, we thankfully did not have to read 26 emails.
Yeah, but there was like 4 or 5 people that wrote comments that spoke again today. And I was sitting here, I'm like, no, I've read your crap. Your stuff.
Hmm.
I said, I don't care, I want it to happen, it's my property.
Oh, that's Mel McQuarrie.
The QR code.
And that's
Still
all
on,
I'm
we're
saying.
still online.
Code.
We're still online, guys.
An email address. I think
Still
you get
online,
more
yeah.
So add the email address with the QR code, if email comments here.
I think
Well,
it'll
this
be-
is still public.
Cool, love it.
Because I think we'll actually then be able to walk out of the open house
Uh-huh.
with more than our gut and some green, red dots.
Yeah.
By getting people to say, you need to email us what you think by
Yeah, you have to give them a date, otherwise we get them.
deadline.
Yeah.
So should we just get rid of the, are you saying maybe even just get rid of the red dot, green dot thing?
No,
Okay.
No, I think that will be an instantaneous thing for them. But I think what Phil's trying to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that people could go home, vacillate on it for a hot minute, ruminate on it, and give us an email back and be very honest.
Yeah, maybe people don't realize that the point of a open house is so that they're more prepared for the public hearing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And maybe we just need to make that more evident. And the public hearing can be a private email or come to the public hearing.
So
Yeah.
human beings know a lot more about what they don't like than what they like. They are compelled with something making them angry to express that. So you're going to get people telling you what they don't like much more than people telling you what they like. If you give them the option to give you both in writing, you give it to them in a timely way, saying, we need, this is going to be on a Wednesday, right? We could
Yeah.
say,
Monday.
by end of Monday night, we have to have your email.
Yep.
And I think you'll get people responding. And it won't be just negative.
Yeah.
Yeah, they might do positive things on an email, but I think you're right. You don't often get positive comments, period.
That was an advertising. You said people know a lot more about what they hate than what they like.
Yeah. Okay.
Now,
Are we
Monday-
rushing that too much? That's, I
So
guess I'm
Monday-
wondering.
Monday, you now have this feedback. What's the next step now? It's the Monday after the open house. You want to do the meeting the next day?
That's what I'm wondering, are we just it too much?
Why?
Well, what are we going to give them? Are we going to give them anything new?
No, it's just for them to tell us how they feel after the open house.
Public hearing?
Yeah.
No.
Then I think you should just go do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all part of the same input phase.
Yep.
We have these boards here, right? The posters with all the
During the
red dots
public hearing.
during the public hearing.
We would have them on the screens.
Why don't have
Where are you gonna put them?
You can put them up,
Put them down the hallway.
The
maybe.
problem is a public hearing is not supposed to be interactive. Well, it's not that it's
Yes,
not
it
supposed
is.
to be, but
The
but we're
hearing,
listening.
yeah, but we're not debating.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But to Robert's point, if you lace the hallway with all the boards ahead of the meeting,
Uh-huh.
and you have it scheduled so that, are we doing a planning commission meeting that night?
Yeah.
Yeah, the regular one.
We'll do our usual stuff on the front end and tell people present, if you haven't seen the boards, they're out there. We're going to open the public hearing in 30 minutes.
We could have a mini open housey thing, okay. So that'd be at 5:30. That'd be at 5:30, I guess.
And
Yeah.
then we'd have the public hearing.
So what are we doing?
Just, if you don't get everybody showing up for the open house, they have one more opportunity to take a look.
Or they'll be reminded of what they love and hate.
Or if they forgot to come to the open house, they can come to the public hearing.
Yeah, give them a half hour.
This enhances our capability of
More
getting more
feedback.
coverage.
You'll get more feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's, what date?
So that is, where are we going? We're going the 19th for the open house and the 25th for the public hearing.
Yeah.
For the hearing.
Yep.
Now, 2 weeks later is April 9.
April
8th was the city
8th.
council.
No.
No, April 1st will be the city council.
So
Yeah.
that April 8th will be our vote.
Yep. Yep. And I already have that down from some other conversation we had.
That's how you and I left it, John.
Yeah.
That's how we left it last time we were exchanging.
Okay, so
Chair, I probably won't be available on that Wednesday. Just letting you know.
Tuesday.
No, the open house is a Wednesday.
Oh, the open house. I thought you meant about that public hearing.
Adjourn.
So with that,
Where are you gonna be? Working. Bill.
Tony, and Jamie, are we good with Jeremy Cook at a later date? Thank you very much. Commission, we had some training scheduled. I believe we do not have enough people to make that worthwhile. We will do that another day. John, are you done? Very
Thank you,
good.
John, for all your work.
John, thank you very much. And let's say thank you to Tori. Thank you, Tori.
Thank her. For what?
She owes me a beer.
She don't want to work. All right. What else? Is that it? Next meeting is?
Not apparent.
Next meeting is
I'll look.
March 11.
March 11th. Great.
Is anything happening on that March 11 besides a regular meeting? Tony, can I ask you a question relevant to the cell tower? When do you want to bring that back to us?
I'm not sure we will do justice in 2 weeks, to be honest, given the questions you have.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'll shoot for 2 weeks, but I've got to regroup with Jamie and Jacob and Mark Smedley and see how long we need. I would probably prefer to commit to 1 month from now.
Sure.
There's a
Okay.
lot of information tonight.
Okay. Very good. Any other concerns, commissioners? Okay. Kind of a motion?
Chairman, I would love to make a motion to adjourn this meeting until next meeting.
Very good. No motion, have a second?
Second.
Second. Motion second. Discussion? Hearing none. Thank you, everybody.
No discussion.
This conference is no longer being recorded.